launching off the same launch pad that Yuri Gagarin launched off of. And 2 minutes into the flight, that's when staging occurs for the Soyuz, and for the Soyuz rocket, the little external boosters on the lower half of the rocket are empty at that point, and then they gently separate and then propel themselves away. But on that day, one of them failed to propel itself away, and when you're 30 miles up going 4,000 miles an hour, the slipstream of the wind is strong enough that it forced that empty tank to impale the center of the rocket, and it disintegrated. In that instant, because everything happens fast when you're going that fast, the launch escape system pulled us to safety. And so this is a still shot of that moment. It was kind of a violent side-to-side shaking. The alarm is sounding. You can hear it. You can see the alarm flashing in front of you. There's a light that comes on the console that says rocket emergency, and then you spend a second or so trying to figure out exactly what happens as you're slowly tumbling, continuing to coast toward space because we were going so fast. And so we coast all the way up out of that debris field up to about 90 kilometers.
You made it to space.
Yeah, depending on who you ask.
Okay.
Though
was it 62 miles is the Kármán line? I don't know what the conversion is for the kilometers.
Yeah, so they use 100 kilometers is the international standard. The military uses 50 miles. That leaves this gray area, and as far as I'm concerned, I walked away alive, so that it didn't matter.
Amen.
And so that launch escape system automatically sensed that there was something wrong, and pulled us to safety. So we landed. The flight was 20 minutes. Pararescue forces were there to pull us out, and within 6 hours, we were coming down at the airport, walking off the jet, able to embrace family. And you can see I'm giving Katie a hug, and
that's your wife.
That's my wife, and Alexei's there with his wife Svetlana. And our extended family is all there as well, and it's that sense of disappointment that it didn't work out, but also that sense
Dragon, for good, we've checked.
Copy, Dragon. We see the same. Closeout team will perform final closeout steps and exit the capsule. You can proceed to Section 4, side hatch close, and report when ready to close the hatch.
In Section 4, and will go.
That's excellent news.
Yes.
Good suits. And, but at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Regardless of whether it's a successful abort or a successful mission, at the end of the day, it's about getting back to family.
And you did that day. The launch escape system worked as it was supposed to. And it brought you back to your family, along with your cosmonaut, who was your fellow crew member, to his family as well. And that's why you train the way you do, is for moments like that. And it underscores the importance of safety, because this is a risky endeavor.
It is. And, the crew members take that risk. The families take that risk right there with them. That's why we train. That's we talked about the
SpaceX Dragon, crew are ready for side hatch closure.
Copy, crew ready for side hatch closure.
We talked about that before. That international aspect training as a crew. During the abort, Alexei and I didn't have to communicate directly to each other.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Deidre's comm check is complete. Stand by for comm checks with DC, MD, and LD in the launch configuration.
All right, we have a long series of comm checks that we'll listen into here.
Dragon, DC on countdown 1, comm check.
DC Dragon, loud and clear.
DC loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with MD.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1, comm check.
MD Dragon, loud and clear.
MD has you loud and clear. Stand by for comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, MD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
MD Dragon, loud and clear.
And I've got you the same. Stand by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, LD on countdown 1 with a comm check.
LD Dragon, loud and clear.
LD loud and clear. Stand by for comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, LD on Dragon to ground with a comm check.
LD Dragon, loud and clear.
LD loud and clear. Dragon SpaceX launch configuration comm checks are complete.
All right, we're through those comm checks, which we got to be able to check the path through the ground, through the air, and they all sound good. Back to what we were talking about as we continue now to your next mission, which is MS-12, and that is, this was just 5 months later, you went to fly again, and we should mention that part of that decision to fly again and jump right back in on a Soyuz rocket is just how successful the Soyuz program has been. You had no problem getting right back on that spacecraft and that rocket and launching into space because that is a highly reliable spacecraft, has been for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we do, this whole idea of being launched into space is predicated on the trust and faith in the teams that are creating that reliability, into the engineering that goes into the system, into every little detail, and all the redundancies in the design, so that when there is something that occurs, you know, the backup's there. And so the launch escape system that rescued us on that day hadn't been used before, but it worked when it was needed, and that's so symbolic of the space program. There are so many things that are in place, and when they're called into action, they work because of the dedication from every person on this gigantic global team. And so you're ready to get back into it. And you know, so 5 months later, it's Alexei and I, plus Christina, who is getting ready to go up for a year-long mission, and we had a beautiful, pristine launch to the International Space Station. Nighttime launch this time, though. So, you know, when you get a twofer, it's nice to get a day launch and a nighttime launch. But you know, and there was so much buildup in terms of getting to the space station, but the real mission is on the space station. It's doing the science. It's the 200 plus days that follow the 6 hours getting there, that you're up there doing scientific research and keeping the laboratory running and upgrading its capabilities. That's why we launch. The launch is thrilling, and it's an exciting part of the mission, but it isn't the mission.
Well said, Dick. And you returned home from a successful mission aboard the International Space Station, and you can certainly tell that you were in space for a while.
Yeah, I mean, you guys picked a great photo of me with a grimace on my face. I mean, you couldn't find anything better. I actually had an amazing time up there.
Yeah.
But when you come back, gravity is painful.
Yeah.
And
The adjustment.
the adjustment back, you haven't had to lift anything for 7 months, and then you come back, and so the first few days of readaptation are challenging.
What are you saying there? Ooh, 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 don't, no.
Don't drop me, please. it's great, and you know, like I said, you're home, and there's this huge sense of accomplishment and relief.
Well, they're removing the protective cover around the seal that leads into Dragon Endeavour. That's to prevent any FOD from getting on it, but they will now take pictures and document exactly how it looks before they seal it shut, put a nice bright light on it, and go around and do that inspection.
It's always amazing to me that, you know, how little FOD, you know, this debris that can cause a leak in the seal, and the seal is just a piece of rubber that's going to press up against a piece of metal, and you know, something like dust or a hair is enough to create a leak path that it's going to fail the leak check. And that's really important, because this hatch is going to stay closed for the next, you know, 6+ months and protect the capsule and the crew from the vacuum of space, you know, from all the air inside the capsule leaking out into space.
You mentioned the 6-month baseline for Crew 11. That is currently the minimum amount of time they will spend on station. However, the commercial crew program is reviewing data along with SpaceX to certify Dragon for an 8-month stay. They're going to go ahead and let them launch, and then that certification is expected to happen sometime in October, and that will stretch their stay out to 8 months. And I've never heard of any astronaut saying, "Oh no, I get to stay longer."
Every day in space is a treat. It's a gift. It's just such a spectacular experience, and it doesn't get old. So at the end of, you know, 180 days, you know, this last mission I did was 171 days. The one before it was 203. You're still sad to leave at the end. It's mixed emotions, but it's yeah, every day up there is a gift.
I got a little sad when you left yesterday.
Stuck in tight quarters with me for 6 hours.
Got so used to you after 6 hours of being here, saying all these wonderful things about space, and then I got in my truck and Nick's gone. Good thing we scrubbed, because I'll see him again tomorrow.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor listening to you tell these stories. And we have one last one. We want to talk about the most recent mission, of course, Crew 9. And this was, you know, just last year. So you had a bit of a
it hasn't
break
even been a
between
year since I launched.
No,
Yeah,
right. I mean, you're still pretty fresh from space, Nick.
Yeah, it's you can see Alex and I. It looks a little more spacious in there when there's only 2 people.
Sure does.
Yeah, but at the end of September, you know, in July, the decision was made to switch to a 2-person crew so that we could create open seats there for Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams to come back with Alex and I. You know, their Starliner had some issues, and so they, you know, NASA decided to bring it back uncrewed, and so Butch and Sonny, they made the decision to have them join our crew and rotational mission to go up there and do a 6-month full-length, long-duration mission. And so Alex and I launched, and you know, priority 1, beautiful launch. Ours was kind of the exact opposite of what we had yesterday.
I know.
Where it was, the weather was trash all day long, except for the 30 minutes right before launch. And so we launched into this beautiful hole in the sky. And yesterday was just the exact opposite. The priority was, let's get to space and let's integrate Butch and Sonny into the Crew 9 crew. And so you can see us there in the capsule together. Butch is in the far field. Sonny's just off the camera in the near field. And from, you know, day 2 on the station, we were Crew 9 there for our, you know, 6 months of scientific research. And that is the mission, is to go up there and do that research and maintain the station and, you know, continue to discover. And then we were able to, you know, get everybody back home safe, which in the end, that's again what it's about. It's about getting back to the family and giving them a hug.
And that was such a high-profile mission, Nick. It was very much in the spotlight. Even, when I talk to people who know I work at NASA, they say, "Oh, what about those two astronauts that got stuck up at station?" It's like, that was stuck was the word. It just did not.
Stuck got stuck.
Yeah, right, it did. Stuck. But they transitioned. NASA made a decision, and immediately they became test flight, crew members into regular increment mission specialists. And they just made the pivot. They worked on station. They worked alongside you. They were a part of Crew 9.
Yeah.
And you brought them home on Dragon. And, it was really making the best of a situation, a decision that was made, to get full use of their time being, having expended the energy, the effort, the money to get them up on station.
Yeah.
Hey, let's put them to work.
Yeah, and yesterday and today, the
Dragon
theme.
SpaceX, the closeout team is taking final steps in preparation for side hatch closure. Stand by for hatch closure and then transition to pad hatch closed. Ensure all items are secure from now through launch.
Dragon copy from Wilco.
Last waves goodbye to the pad team, and
There they are.
shut that hatch.
And the closeout crew closes the hatch to Dragon Endeavour, sealing the astronauts inside for their journey to the International Space Station. What you were saying?
Well, the theme is, if there's a theme, I think you hear it echoed in Zena's words that we've played today, and as in our discussion yesterday, you've heard the same thing in Mike and Kimia and Oleg's words. It's not, space exploration is not about individuals. It's about the mission. And this risky endeavor that we take part in, we don't do it because of the thrill, we do it because of the mission. And so the Crew 9 mission is just another mission in this long legacy of the 25 years of the space station operations and making that happen, doing the scientific discovery and research up there. So yeah, we brought Butch and Sonny into Crew 9, and it's a testament, to their competency and professionalism. From day one, they were all in and able to operate as full-up crew members.
You worked alongside them every single day of that mission, of that 7-month mission.
Absolutely. And they are amazing crewmates, and everything the ground threw at us, we were able to do. And that's also a huge testament to the teams that prep us to get ready to fly. I talked about the 95% of the time we're training for things that we don't expect to happen, but just in case. And they had done training just in case they got stretched. They had done spacewalk training. They had done robotics training. They had done the things that they needed to do just in case this thing we don't think is ever going to happen might happen. And that's what we do every day, is we prepare for that. And so that's we talk about a professional astronaut corps. That's what a professional astronaut corps prepares to do. But that demands that we have this team that helps us get there. And so those are the rock stars behind this whole story, is this team of trainers that had the foresight and the imagination to come up with the things that they think we might need, and they got them ready, and we were able to adapt and overcome the challenges that were thrown at us.
And you and your team adapted extremely well. It was a successful mission. We saw the last photo of you guys coming back down. And here you are today. co-hosting our launch broadcast to see Crew 11 into space. If you're just now joining us, you're watching live coverage from NASA and SpaceX of Crew 11's launch to the International Space Station. T0 is 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a little more than 2 hours before we lift off. Weather is 60% go. We're keeping a close eye on the winds and the convective activity we expect around that time, but the hope is that we'll have a nice spot to launch through into the sky and on into space. You mentioned all the work that you did when you were on Crew 9, and of course a lot of that focuses around research on the ISS. The International Space Station is one of the most extraordinary labs that has ever been built, and it's the final destination, of course, for Crew 11. Let's take a closer look now at the science happening up there in low Earth orbit and how it's improving life for all of us down here on Earth.
The International Space Station isn't just a symbol. It's a powerhouse of cutting-edge science, constantly revealing secrets that defy Earth's limitations and drive us farther into the cosmos.
Our mission is research and science. We have experiments mounted on the outside of the station that are looking at Earth. We study our own bodies and how they react to space, to weightlessness, to radiation, and that helps not only us go on further in future missions, but also helps for medical research back home. And then we study lots of different things as well, like materials, combustion, all sorts of things that help us understand life back on Earth.
Yeah!
Microgravity doesn't play by the rules. It flips them upside down, transforming how liquids flow, how flames burn, and unraveling biological mysteries before our eyes.
I saw some heart tissues beating in space, and it was incredible.
So Tom, we see that top one beating. Looks like happy heart cells.
But we're not just along for the ride. We're explorers, diving headfirst into the challenge and harnessing the power of this unparalleled platform, just as we have been for decades. We're on a relentless quest for answers, seeking to understand the intricate workings of the human body in space and ensuring future crews stay safe on their daring journeys beyond Earth's orbit.
The human aspect of human space exploration is always going to be very important for decades to come.
And when it comes to technology, we're not waiting around. We're discovering new ways to grow crops in harsh environments and engineering innovations to tackle Earth's greatest challenges.
We have amazing technology that allows us to recycle water and create water for us to drink. It's delicious.
Microgravity isn't just a curiosity. It's a game changer in the fight against diseases back on Earth, paving the way for breakthroughs that benefit us all and enabling new economic opportunities in space.
Welcome, Axiom 3 on board the International Space Station.
From our vantage point more than 200 miles above Earth, we are not just spectators. We're gaining unprecedented insights into the world we call home, and we're sharing our findings openly. We're not just achieving results today. We're sparking inspiration in future generations of explorers and embracing the power of global collaboration as we reach for the stars.
What was your favorite experiment on the International Space Station?
Toby, great question. My favorite experiment was the one that I got to eat. It was us growing Hatch chili peppers in our plant habitat.
Station Huntsville on 2, we have video in Node 1. Look at those chili peppers.
And as we soar through space at 17,500 miles per hour, each moment is a step closer to unlocking the mysteries of our Earth, our universe, and propelling our pioneering spirit even farther into space. So come along for the ride aboard the International Space Station.
The beauty of the International Space Station and all the science that's happening aboard.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Why are we there? It's science. It's science in the space environment and in the radiation environment. It's science in microgravity, where you can float without end, and you can't do that anywhere else.
Well, as you can see from this shot, looking skyward, up past the Falcon 9 rocket and Endeavour spacecraft, our astronauts are aboard. They are strapped in. They've had suit leak checks. They've had comm checks. And we're starting to get a few little clouds in the sky. That's expected. It's warm here in Florida on this first day of August. And it's also very humid, even more humid than it was yesterday. As you can see, the puffy cumulus clouds are accumulating a little earlier today. While we have this moment where we have a natural pause in the action, let's take a look at our crew today and introduce you to the entire team. They are led by Crew 11 Commander, NASA astronaut Zena Cardman. She holds a Master of Science in Marine Sciences from UNC Chapel Hill. Cardman has experience with NASA research in the Canadian High Arctic and has supported real-time station operations and lunar surface exploration planning. She also likes rock climbing and powerlifting in her free time. And you trained with her for over a year.
Yeah, almost 18 months. She's a person of many talents. But most importantly, she's got an infectious personality. Her positivity and she's just a fun person to hang out with.
It does. It radiates from her.
It does. Yep.
You know?
Yep. And that's, if you're going to be in a capsule for 15 hours or 20 hours or 40 hours, or you're going to be in a station in close proximity to somebody for 6 months or more, you want somebody that you enjoy hanging out with.
And I certainly enjoyed our time together when she co-hosted our launch broadcast for Crew 9, when we watched you, Nick, go up into space. Michael Fink is our pilot and funny man. Only, according to him, the only second funniest crew member aboard. He is a veteran of 3 space flights. Fink has completed 9 spacewalks, totaling 48 hours and 37 minutes of EVA time. He spent 382 days in space. Fink is a certified pilot for Boeing Starliner and SpaceX Crew Dragon, as well as a co-pilot, flight engineer on Soyuz, and a mission specialist on the Space Shuttle. Fink enjoys spending time with his family, traveling, geology, and learning new languages.
Equally, somebody that's enjoyable to hang out with.
It's true.
It's, you can say that about all of this crew. Just
Dragon
great
SpaceX,
people.
we had a good side hatch leak check.
Dragon copies. Good leak check. Great news.
That is great news.
That is. And so that means that the crew is sealed up inside, safe from the hostile environment of space once this Dragon spacecraft gets into
Dragon SpaceX, more awareness.
orbit.
We are commencing health check for launch escape system. Expect momentary flight computer state change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
Dragon copies. We'll monitor the flight computer state changes.
Now, this is an important milestone to check the health of the launch escape system.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're doing it well in advance of when we would turn on the launch escape system and activate it at about the T-minus 45 point before you start to add your propellant and your oxidizer to the rocket. You want to do that early, so if there is any issues you need to troubleshoot, you've got time to do it. So this is the early checkout of that system.
Let's introduce you to our mission specialist now. Kimiya Yui is the JAXA astronaut on board. He's Crew 11's mission specialist, and with 142 days in space, this will be Yui's second trip to the space station. Yui flew as a flight engineer for Expedition 4445 and became the first Japanese astronaut to capture JAXA's H-2 transfer vehicle. In November of 2016, Yui was assigned as chief of the JAXA astronaut group.
And when you think about his history, you know, capturing the H-2, the HTV, it'd be pretty spectacular if he could capture HTVX as it comes up.
Absolutely, and that's the plan. So if HTVX, which is Japan's newest vehicle, which is going to start docking with the space station, if it all works out, JAXA is really hoping that he'll be at the helm of the crew, or I'm sorry, the Canadian arm, which will grapple the spacecraft and bring it in to space station.
That'd be fabulous. You know, the international aspects of the space station can't be, you can't overstate the importance of it. It's just the way we're able to collaborate and cooperate together. You know, using the Canada arm to grab a JAXA vehicle.
Dragon
and
SpaceX for
spectacular how we work together.
Both Dragon and Falcon 9 are healthy, and we are looking good for the count. The main watch item is going to be what we briefed you in the weather briefing earlier today, which is the probability of violation at 40% due to weather at the launch site. That is the same as the weather briefing. We are going to keep an eye on that as the count progresses.
Copy. Healthy Dragon, Healthy Falcon. Our watch item is weather, which as briefed is 40% chance of violation. We'll be monitoring. Crew will be ready to go.
And lastly, the Crew 11 mission specialist, Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov. This will be his first trip to the International Space Station. He graduated from the Krasnodar Higher Military Aviation School of Pilots with a degree in engineering and military rank of lieutenant. He is married with one child, and he is taking a toy from that child. The child is good
that
with
sounded
it.
terrible.
It doesn't. He has taken his children's toys, but he's taken it into space. If we
Here, I'm going to take your favorite toy away from you.
Is this
no.
your favorite? Okay.
No, and that's one of the cool things that, you know, we're allowed to do is take, you know, little mementos that, you know, we can take that remind us of our friends and family and loved ones, and then we, you know, at the end of the day we get to bring that back to them, and then his child's going to be able to hold that dear the rest of their life.
It really has to be special. I have a son, a young son, and I look at his toys with nostalgia, right? I see him play with them. I see how much they mean to him. And then to add that additional sentimentality to it that's just cool. And, you know, his kid will, I'm sure, see some video clip in some way of that toy floating around, right?
Yeah,
so
it makes it more tangible.
Right.
That, I held it in my hands, and now I see it in space, and somehow that draws your, you know, I did the same thing with my kids. It draws them closer to that experience. Yeah. So the vehicle's clean, everything is tracking well, and we're waiting on a weather update. I propose we focus on the 60% go as opposed to the 40% probability of violation.
We
just
can do
seems
that.
more. It seems more glass half full. To me.
It does, doesn't it? And that's what we put on our graphic. We put
Yeah.
the go.
Yeah.
Officially, it's given to us in a POV.
And I understand that. Statistics are the way they are for a reason.
That's right.
But
Nick is
positive thoughts
he
today.
is doing his best with the positivity here, and I appreciate it greatly. Okay, so we have a confirmed hatch closure. And so we'll start to see the closeout crew wrap up operations there in the White Room. And all of this is well ahead of schedule. So that's a good thing. They got plenty of margin if they need it.
Absolutely. Margin's a good thing to have.
How about some more social questions?
I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah, keep them coming, folks. You can do it with hashtag AskNASA through the various platforms, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Twitch. Our next question. Abigail C3 asks, are there any space, quote, pioneers that have inspired Nick during his career or leading up to it? Did you have mentors at NASA? Well, let's take the first half of that question and talk about the pioneers.
Yeah, pioneers. I read lots of biographies, autobiographies as I was growing up of, the Apollo generation, the early space program. I was fortunate enough on my first space flight, actually before that, after I'd been selected at NASA, every couple years we have a reunion where all the current astronauts, former astronauts gather together, and I got to meet Michael Collins, and he is somebody that I had always looked up to, and it just, if you read his book or you just read his history, for me he was the epitome of we said it earlier today, it's not about the individual. You do the job that the mission requires you to do, and to be part of the crew that landed on the moon, that first landed on the moon, but be the only member that, hey, your job is so important, we need you to stay off of the moon to make sure that we can get them back home safely. And you do what it takes. And that's what we ask of everybody that joins the astronaut corps is we're going to need you to do what the mission requires. And that's an example that sticks in my mind. And during my first flight, he came to Mission Control, and I was able to actually do a downlink and chat with him.
Oh, wow.
So it was a full circle moment, and something I'll never forget.
Michael Collins, of course, was part of Apollo 11, which launched in 1969 and helped land the first man on the moon for the United States. But as you mentioned, he was called at times the loneliest man in the world, because it was his job to stay back in the capsule while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin descended down to the surface of the moon and got the white hot attention of the entire world when they walked on the moon. And there was Michael Collins, steady, waiting for them to get back.
Taking care
by
of
himself.
The ship. Taking care of the ship, making sure that
Yeah.
he was ready to receive them when they came back.
And then what about now, if you can share? Do you have any mentors?
Well, the astronaut office is such a close group. You get to interact with so many people. So, I can point to today's crew. So Spanky's been part of the office since I showed up. And
this is Mike Fink.
Yeah, and he has, been there as kind of this force helping shape the commercial crew program. And, just being able to watch that. And we have a similar background. I was a Air Force flight test engineer before I transferred over to the Space Force a few years ago. And he was an Air Force flight test engineer. And so we had a similar military background. And so there's lots of those touch points inside the astronaut corps. And so we work together to make each other better.
Such tremendous experience just within the astronaut corps. It's a great point, Nick. You've got highly experienced veterans who have flown on space shuttle, and you have the new generation of astronauts who are flying on the commercial vehicles.
Yeah.
So it spans the gamut.
It does. It does. Well, Expedition 72. My U.S. crew members up there were Butch Wilmore, Sonny Williams, and Don Pettit. So by comparison, I was the rookie. But I had, previously done 3 spacewalks and been up there 200 plus days.
Right.
I was still the rookie. So there's lots of experience inside the astronaut corps, and part of that is making sure that experience gets shared down. So it's exciting to watch Xena and Oleg launch on their first missions to start to accumulate some of that experience. It's a passing of the baton.
Really enjoying your insight and your experience as you talk about it, Nick. Astronaut Nick Hague here with us, commander of Crew 9, also flew on Soyuz. We are T-minus 1 hour and 49 minutes and counting until the liftoff of NASA's SpaceX Crew 11 mission. We have 2 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut inside of the Dragon Endeavour atop the Falcon 9 rocket from Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Of course, they are headed to the International Space Station to help maintain the orbiting lab. Once on board the International Space Station, Crew 11, as you see there, will become members of Expedition 7374. They will conduct research to develop the production of nutrients in space, such as vitamins. They will also evaluate mass-producing human-induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs, to develop cell-based therapies for diseases such as cancer, also as a possible alternative to antibiotics. Crew 11 will test phage therapy to treat bacterial infections. So Nick and I are standing by now as we are listening in to a weather brief. So please stand by. again, we are standing by as we're listening to a weather brief from Launch Weather Officer James Tager to SpaceX's launch director. Please stand by. Okay. All right, so we have been listening to a weather brief. This was off air, by the way, but Nick and I listening to Launch Weather Officer James Tager give an update to Launch Director for SpaceX on the weather. This is something that they had set up a few hours ago to do one at the T-minus 2 hour mark. And so here we are, and we have the update. And basically what they said was, it is a sit, watch, and wait situation. We do have increased moisture in the atmosphere. You can certainly see that in the picture in the lower right hand of your screen. Cumulus clouds, light ones building in the area. The question is, when these sea breeze storms and clouds develop, they are going to develop inland, which that launch pad that you see right there is literally 500 feet from the beach. So it's all the way as close as you can get to the water. Right there at the Atlantic Ocean. But you see two things here in the weather. You see some low, thin, puffy cumulus starting to, be created in the area, starting to develop. And then you see those high cirrus clouds. Those high clouds are drier in nature. You want to see those. They are moving over the area. They look at those as a sign of good things, potentially to kind of mitigate against the increase in moisture. But overall, when the launch weather officer was asked where he would put the current POV updated to the second right now, he left it at 40% probability of violation, which puts us at a 60% go. That has been the go forecast since we began our launch broadcast this morning. You see there in that shot a line of cumulus clouds, nice little clouds there. The scale, the angle of this kind of throws you off because it makes it look like it's out in front of it, but those clouds are more over towards the land side. So we will see what happens with our sea breeze. We're watching it closely. We're also watching the weather along the ascent corridor. Showers are moving through that area. At this moment, we also need to have good conditions there. This is where the Dragon could potentially splash down. But what's good about the showers there, Nick, is that they are expected to clear that area in an hour or so. So hoping for a good ascent corridor. And then, of course, you have the abort zones. If they were to get to orbit, that they would later splash down to. They are monitoring those as well. So essentially, more watching, more waiting. We've got a crew that's ready to go. And we've got weather that's just a watch item and continues to be at this moment.
Yeah. No, it's actually, for me, it's fun to listen to that back channel conversation, back and forth between, the weather office over at the 45th Space Launch Delta and SpaceX, because you get to hear the depth of analysis that's going into, making sure that every step of the way the weather is going to be good enough for the crew, and so things are continuing to go. We're still 60% go. I'm staying positive, and it's great.
Well, we got really close yesterday at 12:09 p.m. Eastern Time. We were just a minute away. And so today we'll be at 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time. So if everything tracks as it did yesterday, then we should be good to go. How about that for some positivity from your co-host?
I love it. I love it.
Okay. All right. T-minus 1 hour and 40 minutes and counting. Let's take you now inside Mission Control in Houston, where flight controllers are constantly monitoring the International Space Station and the people living aboard. NASA's Sandra Jones is live there at Johnson Space Center. Sandra, good morning.
Hey, good morning, and thank you, Daryl. As you said, this is Mission Control Houston in the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The team is continuing to prepare for launch today and is being led by Flight Director Anthony Varia. Today, we will be hopefully launching the 11th rotational crew mission to the International Space Station under the agency's Commercial Crew Program. Following Crew 11's arrival, the space station will have a total of 11 crew members representing 3 different agencies aboard for just a few days. Once on board, Crew 11 will go over handover procedures with the off-going Crew 10, including a safety briefing and orientation, and then the new crew will jump right in to help advance scientific knowledge and demonstrate new technologies. After a few days of handover activities, the members of Crew 10 will prepare for their undocking and return to Earth. Direct handovers between crews allow for continuity of the activities and helps to ensure a continuous U.S. presence on the International Space Station, which is about to celebrate 25 years of continuous human presence in November. Ahead of Crew 10's return, JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi will turn over command of the International Space Station to Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergei Ryzhikov. The space station is currently in Expedition 73, and here is a look at that mission patch on your screen. In the fall, NASA astronaut Chris Williams and Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergei Kutsverchkin and Sergei Mikheyev will join the on-orbit crew. Shortly after the departure of the Soyuz MS-27 with NASA astronaut Johnny Kim coming home will mark the commencement of Expedition 74, which will be led by the new commander, NASA astronaut Mike Fink. All this, of course, coming up after today's launch. We will continue with the countdown, and with under 2 hours before launch, we'll send it back over to Kennedy.
All right, thank you, Sandra Jones. Back here at Kennedy Space Center, you're looking up at the Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon Endeavour with Crew 11 inside the spacecraft at the very top. This is Launch Complex 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center, a historic launch pad where launches to the moon have happened, as well as the long and very successful space shuttle program. We've documented the astronauts' path and crew members' path to the pad today, starting at T-minus 4 hours and 10 minutes. We saw them through suit up, all 4 crew members getting into their spacesuits. They checked them for leaks and then had them head out the door to their waiting vehicles. 3 Teslas parked outside astronaut crew quarters. They jumped inside and under security escort made a 20-minute drive across the Kennedy Space Center to this location that you see here, Launch Complex 39A. Once inside their spacecraft, they performed umbilical checks, they did communication checks, and they pressurized their suits a second time to make sure they are good to go for launch. The closeout crew sealed the door, the side hatch, which is used to enter the spacecraft as well as leave it. They sealed it up for the final time before going into space. And now we are marching to our next few milestones. We have some margin in the schedule now, so a little time for the astronauts to, as Nick was telling us yesterday, do some reflection, chat amongst themselves. And there was a phrase that you used as well yesterday, chair fly.
Yeah, aviation term.
Yeah.
To, sit there and visualize what you have to do and go through the motions mentally of everything that's going to come down the road. And so chair flying the launch sequence and everything that you're going to have to do. Thinking about all the different radio calls, all the different cues that you need to be able to see. That's chair flying.
Well, let's chair fly ourselves right to the International Space Station now with some video. We are commemorating a very significant anniversary coming up on November 2nd, 25 years of continuous human presence aboard the orbiting laboratory.
And liftoff. International Space Station is underway.
We are in the golden age of the space station right now in terms of the return on investment and what we're able to do there.
One of the great legacies of the space station is not just going to be science, but very importantly, the international cooperation. This is perhaps most prominent, international cooperation for exploration.
Yeah, what a view. 25 years. When I first joined the astronaut corps, I'd go to elementary schools and say, everybody in this room doesn't know life without someone living off of the planet Earth. Now I can do that at colleges. It's just impressive, the legacy of scientific research and international cooperation that the station program has built over the last 2.5 decades. It's a treat to be part of that, and everybody that's part of human spaceflight, that big team I keep referring to, that 100,000 people across the globe, everybody should be so proud of being part of that.
One of the first things Crew 11 did as a team was design their mission patch. You, of course, participated in the design of yours. This is Crew 11's patch. Its colors celebrate the 3 nations they represent, and the 3 stars you see in there, they honor their space agencies working together, NASA, JAXA, and Roscosmos. 2 sunbeams form the number 11 that you see shaded in the background, shining on a tiny blue dot, our home on Earth. A dragon looks on, a nod to both the spacecraft and the spirit of exploration, while a red flame wraps around it, all symbolizing the full journey: launch, life in space, and a safe return home. And if you look closely, you can see a tribute to their children in the stars, a reminder that missions like this inspire the next generation.
Yeah, it's designing your patch is one of those first crew bonding experiences. You put your ideas out there, but it's fun to see the final product because it really expresses the personality of the crew. And Xena hand drew the dragon, so
did she?
She's an artist.
We're going to talk more about her artistic talent later in the show when we get closer to liftoff. Look forward to doing that around T-minus 13 minutes. Right now, we want to talk about the flight kits. Nick, each crew member gets to bring personal stuff aboard the ISS. you don't get to bring a lot. And you, in fact, have a designated volume, right?
Yeah, so, a small bag, getting things to and from space is expensive, but it is important because you are going to be living on the space station. And so being able to bring some personal effects that help connect you and ground you to your friends and family and loved ones that are on the ground. So here's a small bag. You get to put a few things in it. Can't be too heavy, can't be too big, and everybody brings up unique things.
And certainly that's what Commander Zena Cardman did, and you had a hand in helping get her her flight kit stowed away and put into place. She told us that she's bringing, of course, photographs of family and friends, photographs carrying that have her team members in it. She's carrying some for them that she's going to then return to them. Training team, instructors, flight controllers, the people who keep the crew safe while they fly. And so she has those, but in addition, she also has cards that her late father wrote her that have been up there since Crew 9 went up, since you went up.
Yeah, so the things that we get to take up often don't ride up with us in the Crew Dragon. They come up on a cargo vehicle, and so our Crew 9 effects went up before the crew change happened. And so some of her personal items have been up there since over a year ago.
Wow.
And so part of it was when we got up there, making sure that we were able to set her things aside, to set Stephanie Wilson's things aside, and so that when they get to the station, they're going to be able to find them.
Michael Fink is bringing something that is very familiar to him on missions that he's gone on in the past. He's taking his wife's gamusa from her side of the family. It's a type of silk scarf from her home state of Assam. It carries with it the blessings for his trip to the ISS from her side of the family. He took one on all 3 of his previous missions. The one that he did aboard the space shuttle, as well as his 2 Soyuz missions. He's been married for 25 and a half years, and so something that's very personal and very important to him. Kimia is bringing a lot of pictures of family and friends, and he's going to give some of them back to those friends. And we mentioned Oleg earlier, taking pictures, and also a couple of toys.
He's borrowing.
He's borrowing.
He's borrowing.
That's a
the
good way to put it. With very much an intent on returning them with some additional status. A space-flown toy.
Yeah, the space-flown. There's something about. I think this desire to bring photographs, to bring things to space, and then bring them back to your friends and family. It's really the desire is to bring them to space with you. And the best I can do is bring a little bit of space back to you. But yeah, if I could bring everybody, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to go from 700 people that have been in space to 700,000 people that have been in space to, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
The more people we can get in space, appreciating and experiencing just that life-changing perspective, the better off the planet's going to be. And these are small gestures we do for our families to share that with them, but then also to let them know how important they are to actually putting us in those seats on that rocket, because you don't get there on your own. It takes a team to get you there. It takes the family, the love, and the support to get you there.
In addition to the flight kits, of course, Crew 11 taking science up as well. And some of the experiments they'll be working on include how do you grow vitamins in space, or even use viruses to fight bacteria on a spacecraft. For the past year and a half, Crew 11 has been training to support cutting-edge research like this aboard the International Space Station. First up is Bionutrients 3. This study is looking at how to make essential vitamins and nutrients in space so astronauts can stay healthy on long missions. They'll be testing samples like yogurt, kefir, and a yeast-based drink to see how well they work in microgravity. Next is Stem Cell X IP1, which uses space to grow stem cells. These cells can turn into any type of cell in the body and could one day help treat diseases like cancer. Growing them in microgravity may produce more cells and better ones, higher quality stem cells, that we can then use on Earth. And then there's Genes in Space 12. It's testing phage therapy, which uses viruses that target and kill bacteria. It could be a powerful alternative to antibiotics, especially in space, where infections can become harder to treat. Some pretty interesting research happening on station, Dick, and stem cells, of course, that research has been around for a little bit, and even you got to work on stem cells in space in your time on the ISS.
Yeah, and the comparison between my first mission and my second mission, just the complexity of the experiments that we've been able to start to do up there it's just exploded. And so we're really starting to see return on the investment on maximizing the output of our facilities up there. But those three experiments that you highlighted they're pretty cool because they highlight different aspects. The stem cells, Genes in Space 12, it's the 12th iteration, so we've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Stem cells, it's getting really complex. Then you're talking about nutrients in space, and that's how we're leveraging the space station research to be able to inform us on how we're going to do deep space exploration. Because we need to learn some of those answers here close to home, where you're a few hours away from the surface and we can iterate quickly versus taking it months or years away from the Earth, and you can't iterate as fast and learn as fast. So the space station, I was impressed with a lot of the things that I was doing this last time around were all focused on how are we reducing risk and learning more that's going to help us get back to the surface of the moon and onto Mars.
That's the focus now, and where so much research, the human research as well aspect of it. How can we help astronauts survive the hostility of space in deep space, going out to Mars, going to the moon? So much has been focused on that recently, and it's important because there's a lot of technology that we have yet to develop to help make sure astronauts are going to be safe on that journey.
Yeah, and you see this budding start of that understanding and helping really propel us deeper into space. But then you also see that level of complexity build up on the research that we're getting to be able to leverage like the stem cells here on the ground to make life better for everyone on Earth. And that's the goal of exploration at its biggest, is going and discovering and learning so that we can make things better back here on planet Earth.
T-minus 1 hour and 21 minutes and counting until liftoff of NASA and SpaceX's Crew 11 to the International Space Station. You're looking at a live view of Launch Complex 39A. That's Dragon Endeavour, the flight leader in the SpaceX fleet of vehicles. Today would be its 6th flight. Dragon Endeavour has flown 5 previous flights Since its first flight in 2020 for Demo 2, SpaceX's Endeavour Dragon has been a workhorse for NASA's Commercial Crew program, flying mission after mission. It has safely carried astronauts to the International Space Station 5 times: Demo 2, Crew 2, Axiom Mission 1, Crew 6, and Crew 8. In all, Endeavour has flown 9 astronauts, 3 space tourists, 2 Roscosmos cosmonauts, 1 retired NASA astronaut, and 1 ESA astronaut, and an Arab astronaut to and from the International Space Station. And Crew 11 marks Endeavour's 6th mission to the ISS. And there's been some fun that's been had along the way as well. That Endeavour has seen some fun crews.
The bar is high. Choreographed dancing is that's a special skill.
Those were your friends from Crew 1 that we saw with the sweet moves. Some things we're looking forward to, of course, further down the countdown is launch escape system arm, the retraction of the crew access arm, getting closer to less than an hour from now. So we're gearing up for that. Also, the big one, T-minus 35 minutes, we'll begin tanking this rocket with propellants in order to make this flight to space.
Yeah, everything builds up to that. Well, everything builds up to liftoff, right?
That's right.
But if you're going to go anywhere, you need gas. And before we load it with gas, we got to arm the launch escape system. So all of that starts to really pick up around T-minus 45. And, you know, right now you're still in that, you're in the seat, you're waiting, you're reflecting. As you start to arm the launch escape system, that's the mental shift to now it's time to be ready to go. We have time for another social question?
We do indeed. Let's take one. Christy asks, how do they store, drink enough water on the space station?
This is a great question.
Oh, this is great.
You can go so many directions with this.
Why don't you go into all of them?
So water is really heavy, surprisingly. And heavy things are expensive to launch into space. And we'd need to launch way too many rockets if we didn't learn how to recycle our water. And so at its simplest form, what we're trying to do on the space station is mimic the things that happen on the ground. The Earth naturally recycles its water. On the space station, we have to create these really complex machines in order to take dirty water and distill it and purify it into drinking water. And we're able to do that with about 96 to 98% of our water up there. So we only have to launch a little bit of water each time in order to replace what we've consumed. So how do we recycle? What do we recycle? Well, we have to work out every day up there for 2.5 hours. And while you're riding the bike or running on the treadmill or lifting weights, you're sweating. And that sweat has to go somewhere. It evaporates off your skin, and the air conditioners inside of the space station collect that sweat, that humidity, and then they move that into the water purification system, and it turns it into clean drinking water. That's one source. Another big source is urine. And so as we go to the restroom up there, we collect that urine and put it into a urine purification system. And that turns it into dirty water. It's actually clean, but it turns it into dirty water that we put into the water purification system. And we use that. And so what was today's coffee is tomorrow's coffee, is the day after that's coffee.
Well, you're looking live. Thank you so much for that. That was a great explanation, albeit a little bit gross. You're looking at a live view of Crew 11 at Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Stay right here because in just a few moments, we will be expanding our live launch coverage. Good morning and welcome back. You're watching live launch coverage of NASA and SpaceX's 11th rotational flight to the International Space Station. I'm NASA's Daryl Nail, joined once again by NASA astronaut Nick Hague. After yesterday's weather scrub, we're back on track for a second attempt. Liftoff now set for 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time from Launch Pad 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center. And before we continue, a quick reminder about Nick's incredible experience in space. General Nick Hague was selected as a NASA astronaut in 2013. His first flight to space station ended in 2018 with a launch abort following a rocket booster failure on Soyuz MS-10, a dramatic escape that he and his Roscosmos crewmate survived safely. He then returned to space successfully on Soyuz MS-12, spending 203 days on the ISS. Then last fall, he commanded NASA's SpaceX Crew 9 mission, launching with cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov. In total, Nick has logged 373 days in space and completed 4 spacewalks. So glad you're here with us, and you've documented everything starting at T-minus 4 hours and 10 minutes early this morning, and we've been rocking and rolling ever since.
No, it's been great to be here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Supporting your friend and colleague, Zena Cardman, as well as the rest of the crew members on their mission today. Crew 11 is launching from Pad 39A. We're just over an hour away.
About the same as previously, 40% chance of
Once
violation.
they
and
launch,
copy all, we are all tracking for
they'll arrive at station and join Expedition 7374. And in just 3 days, Crew 10 will return home. A quick 2+2 crew handover. Yeah, so we had an update there about the weather. We had been monitoring that situation. The POV, which is probability of violation, still stands at 40%. That was the update they were giving. We are go, as Nick likes to say, 60% go for launch. Let's take you through Crew 11's launch day preparations so far this morning. After waking up and grabbing a bite to eat, the crew suited up inside the historic crew quarters, a tradition that dates back decades. SpaceX teams helped them into their custom pressure suits, and just like other crews before them and yesterday, they gathered around a table for a card game to burn off any lingering bad luck before launch. After that, they followed in the footsteps of every NASA astronaut since Apollo 7 in 1968 by walking out to greet a crowd of family, friends, and supporters. Then it was into their Teslas for a security escorted ride out to Launch Pad 39A. It took about 20 minutes to get out there. Of course, a journey filled with excitement and anticipation for a second attempt. They got a look at their rocket, stared up at it, and then walked across the crew access arm and into their spacecraft. And we've been monitoring them ever since. We're watching them live now, strapped into Dragon Endeavour as they await the next big milestones, fueling of the rocket and the arming of the launch escape system. These are big moments, and we'll talk the audience through them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's right now they're waiting a little bit, but the excitement's going to start to pick up here when we arm the launch escape system and then put on the 1 million pounds of propellant that's going to go onto this rocket that we're going to turn into flame and push these guys into space.
And if all goes well, that'll happen according to plan at 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, throughout the broadcast, we've been taking your questions from social media. We want to keep them coming. Just send them in on the hashtag AskNASA on Facebook, X, YouTube, and Twitch. And if you're watching NASA's YouTube channel right now, you can refresh your player or browser to join our chat. Okay, at this time, we're going to expand our coverage as we did yesterday to include our partners at SpaceX. So let's welcome back our commentators joining us live again from Hawthorne, California. Welcome back, guys. We're going to give it another go.
Thanks, Daryl. It's great to hear and see you guys once again. And like you mentioned before, keeping an eye on the weather is going to be the name of the game today. I'm Joseph Zakshesky with NASA Communications.
And I'm Somi Srivastava, a certification engineer here at SpaceX.
We're once again excited to be...
Dragon, foot restraint checks complete.
And you just heard the call down from the crew.
Copies. Thank you.
As they continue to march forward towards those milestones, their restraint checks, they're strapped in and ready to go. And we're once again excited to be joining you from Mission Control here in Hawthorne, California, as we count down to liftoff of Crew 11, just a little more than an hour from now. And as you heard Daryl and Nick talk about during yesterday's launch attempt, the weather played the key factor and caused the scrub. They walked right up to the T-minus 1 minute and 7-second mark. So today we continue to keep our eye on the skies and monitor the weather as the clock continues to roll backwards towards liftoff. Crew 11 is our 11th mission with SpaceX, operationally flying astronauts for long-duration missions to the International Space Station, and the 12th as a part of NASA's Commercial Crew Program with SpaceX. Crew 11 has 2 first-time flyers on board, as well as a veteran NASA astronaut and a veteran Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA, astronaut making their return to microgravity. The multinational crew also represents 3 different space agencies, Soumya: NASA, JAXA, and Roscosmos.
And today's crew will fly aboard Dragon Endeavour, which was the first operational Dragon to carry crew on board during SpaceX and NASA's Demo 2 mission in 2020 with astronauts Bob and Doug. Endeavour has been pretty busy since then, having flown NASA's Crew 2 mission, Axiom 1, and NASA's Crew 6 and Crew 8 missions. This will be the first Dragon that gets to fly 6 times. Overall, for the Dragon fleet, this will be Dragon's 49th visit to the space station and its 19th human spaceflight mission overall, and the 5th Dragon flight just this year. And notably, today's return of the Falcon 9 first stage will be the last landing at Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station.
Now, over these last 3+ hours, Crew 11 has been going through the detailed process of getting ready for their mission, similar to what they went through yesterday on the first launch attempt and their ultimate destination, the International Space Station. So let's introduce you to the crew. In the commander's seat, as you get a live look inside the capsule, is astronaut Zena Cardman, conducting her first space flight. She holds a Master of Science in Marine Sciences from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and has experience with NASA research in the Canadian High Arctic, and she has also supported real-time station operations and lunar surface exploration planning. And sitting right next to Cardman is pilot Mike Fink of NASA, a veteran of 3 space flights. He has spent 382 days in space, including 9 spacewalks for an impressive 48 hours and 37 minutes in total spent outside of the orbiting laboratory. Fink is a certified pilot for Boeing Starliner, a part of the Commercial Crew Program, and SpaceX's Dragon, and the co-pilot flight engineer on Soyuz, plus a mission specialist on the Space Shuttle, STS-134, the last mission for Shuttle Endeavour, so only fitting that he flies on an Endeavour here today.
And serving as mission specialist is Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA astronaut Kimiya Yui. This will be Yui's 2nd trip to the space station. He was selected as an astronaut by JAXA back in 2009 and has logged 142 days in space. And to round it all out, Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov is also serving as a mission specialist and was selected as a cosmonaut in 2018 and will be making his first spaceflight today.
Now, once Crew 11 is on board the International Space Station, they will briefly become members of Expedition 73. And then they will join Expedition 74 in the fall, and that'll be following the departure of Soyuz MS-27, that spacecraft that'll carry NASA astronaut Johnny Kim in his return back to Earth. While on board, Crew 11 will conduct space station maintenance and scientific research to understand plant cell division, finding alternatives to antibiotics and microgravity, investigate producing essential nutrients on demand for long-duration missions, and study how spaceflight affects human physiology and psychology. And looking forward to hear more about that incredible research being done on this mission and how it will help prepare NASA and astronauts for their return to the moon and then on to Mars. The crew will also engage with students worldwide via the ham radio and use its existing hardware with newly integrated software to test backup lunar navigation solutions. Now, as we continue to monitor today's countdown, we're approaching that 1 hour mark, 1 hour and 3 minutes to go. So let's get an update on all things that involve the Falcon 9, the spacecraft, the crew, and more as we welcome in another member of our broadcast team, in Ronnie.
Thanks so much, Joseph, and good morning, everyone. I'm Ronnie Foreman, a senior sales manager here at SpaceX, and I'm very excited to be joining you again today from right outside of Mission Control in Hawthorne. It continues to be a smooth countdown this morning, and we're looking good for an on-time liftoff at 11:43 a.m. Eastern Time from Launch Complex 39A in Florida, as long as our weather continues to cooperate. Now, coming up here at about T-minus 45 minutes, we're going to be listening in for our team to report their readiness for propellant load with a final go, no-go poll. Here on the ground, teams will be staffed around the clock in Mission Control to monitor Dragon and the mission, not just today, but throughout the entire flight, from liftoff to Crew 11's arrival at the space station, all the way through splashdown when those astronauts return home. On console or on headset in Mission Control, which you've got that great live shot of on your screen right now, we've got 6 key positions. The mission director is in charge of the room and tasked with making real-time decisions to ensure mission success. The person that you're going to hear today talking to the astronauts is the Crew Operations and Resources Engineer, who we'll refer to as the core throughout the broadcast. There's a good shot of him there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as well. And of course, those 4 additional team members are focused on vehicle systems, including avionics, navigation and control, software, propulsion, life support, and communication with the ground support teams. Then apart from our mission control here, the Falcon 9 team is currently located in the Launch and Landing Control Center at Hangar X in Florida, not too far away from LC-39A, which we're looking at now. So with less than, or just more than an hour until launch, we are all settling in here across the country for final checkouts, propellant loading, and ultimately launch. Joseph?
Thank you, Ronnie. And just like yourself and everybody here in SpaceX and across the country, looking forward to this launch as we continue to have that countdown rollback. And just like the teams here in Hawthorne, California, NASA has its own team members at NASA's Mission Control Center and the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Houston, Texas, where our other teammate for today's broadcast, Sandra Jones, we'll hear from her in just a few moments. That's where she's located, and that team has been busy preparing the International Space Station for Dragon's arrival. Now, the teams on the ground in Mission Control are giving their goes for launch to make sure that the station is ready to receive Dragon Endeavour and the new crew on board. Following liftoff to the flight to the space station will be a little bit shorter than what yesterday's launch attempt would have been. It was 39 hours then. Now,
cycling orbit tank isolation valves to equalize low flow pressure.
Dragon copies.
and more great communication there between the teams on the ground to the crew as we continue to march towards that liftoff time, as we are now zeroing in on 60 minutes away. Well, speaking of time, I was saying that yesterday's launch attempt would have had Crew 11 go for about 39 hours of phasing between launch and docking to the International Space Station. Now with today's launch attempt, that'll take about 16 hours, with Dragon flying autonomously the entire way. Now, docking is targeted for early Saturday morning, August 2nd, and that'll be 3 a.m. Eastern Time, or midnight here on the West Coast. And just like autopilot on a commercial aircraft, the crew always has the ability to take manual control of the spacecraft if so needed.
We're now just under T-minus 1 hour and counting.
SpaceX, your go for Section 5. When ready, report go for launch.
We're continuing to hear great comms.
Dragon copies, go for Section 5 and Wilco.
Great comms between mission control and the crew. So we are now at T-minus 59 minutes and counting down to today's launch. While we wait, let's check in with NASA's Sandra Jones at the Johnson Space Center to see how things are shaping up at Mission Control in Houston. Sandra.
Welcome back to Mission Control Houston here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. We are here in the hub of human spaceflight at NASA. The team here has pulled go for launch, and the International Space Station is ready for the crew to lift off as they begin their journey to the orbiting laboratory. At the time of launch, the International Space Station will be traveling 260 miles over the North Atlantic just south of Nova Scotia. In the home stretch of the rendezvous, NASA and SpaceX flight controllers will enter into what we call integrated operations, where both flight control teams will conduct a series of go, no-go polls for Dragon Endeavour's docking to the International Space Station. Rotational missions like Crew 11 help NASA continue to maximize the important research and technology demonstrations made possible only in the International Space Station.
SpaceX, Dragon, go for launch.
SpaceX copies. Dragon crews go for launch.
And you heard it there from the commander of the Dragon Endeavour. They are go for launch. We are continuing to march towards a launch in 58 minutes from today. Their destination, of course, you see there on your screen, the International Space Station, with a unique microgravity environment, critical for NASA to prepare for future commercial low Earth orbit destinations and to understand and overcome the challenges of long-duration spaceflight necessary for a long-term presence on the Moon and crewed missions deeper into the solar system, including onto Mars. Now here's a closer look at the mission and what Crew 11 will have to look forward to during their stay aboard the International Space Station.
International Space Station, one of humanity's greatest accomplishments so far. 15 countries working together and adding more all the time that have helped plan, build, and fly the International Space Station. And it just shows what human beings can do when we work together.
As Crew 11, we are about to launch on board a Dragon spacecraft to the International Space Station.
We are actually continuing an ISS mission almost a quarter centuries. Right now, crew members are working very hard on the ISS, so we got that result, and actually we do more researches, then pass that information to crew 12.
Конечно, исследования на Международной космической станции, как я считаю, они очень важны, и они являются ключевым звеном в развитии технологии, науки и всей цивилизации. И все самое лучшее из космоса всегда приходит рано или поздно на Землю в виде новых открытий, новых приборов, возможностей и технологий.
I'm very excited to see what kind of payloads we get to work with. It's a really interesting day-to-day life where 1 hour you might be fixing the toilet and then the next hour you're working on a physics experiment studying fundamental processes of our universe.
We're going to be up there for a lot of time. And we are going to, every day, be in space, look at the Earth go by, and accomplish some really amazing science. We will do material science and human research in space, lots of experiments, and then maybe do some spacewalks. It's a really fun crew to be on. We're going to enjoy every moment, and we're going to help each other to be successful and accomplish our mission.
So we have various kinds of difficult training together. For example, emergency training in Building 9 or emergency training in SpaceX. This kind of training actually made our bond stronger.
Наш экипаж Crew-11 — это экипаж, который состоит из высокопрофессионально подготовленных людей. И мне нравится этот экипаж.
In some ways, my only expectation for the mission is to fly and return home safely and still friends when we get back. There are so many things to play around with, to study, to explore, and I'm really open to every possibility, ways to engage with the International Space Station.
We all came from other crews. Kimiya, Yui, San, and I both came from Starliner 1. Oleg was on a Soyuz mission before this, and Zena, of course, was on Crew 9. But we all came together with our previous experience, melded into a really fun team, ready to go fly to our International Space Station.
We are back here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, joined by astronaut Nick Hague. I'm Daryl Nail with NASA Communications, and we are watching this countdown proceed, the second day. We were scrubbed by weather yesterday. We heard about that earlier, got down to 1 minute and 7 seconds. What's interesting about this to me, Nick, is although the launch is delayed, oddly enough, their arrival to the International Space Station has not been delayed, not even a second. They are still going to be arriving on Saturday at 3 a.m., but they're just going to go quicker.
Yeah, orbital dynamics can do strange things like that. Sometimes you need to speed up to slow down and vice versa. And in this case, we can launch at a different time, use some orbital dynamics to our advantage, and arrive to the station at the exact same time. What it means for the crew is I'm going to be in that capsule for 16 hours instead of 40 hours, which, it's a tight space. It's not the tightest of spaces, but it'll be nice to get to the station a little bit faster and be able to spread your wings out coming through the hatch.
A small benefit to a launch delay, having a little shorter.
If there is a silver lining somewhere in there, this is it.
This is it. All right. Well, let's take a social question. We've been asking throughout the broadcast for our audience to send us questions, and Nick, you've been doing a great job answering them. Had a lot of kids asking questions as well. Our next question comes from Jeff, who asks, what was the most interesting thing you saw outside the window when on board the ISS? I've heard you describe it now for 2 launch attempts. I thought it was fascinating that you were able to see the entire coast to coast of America, from West Coast to East Coast, and I just wondered what that was like. But what was the singular most interesting thing you saw?
So this last time, it was the difference between looking out the cupola 6 years ago and looking out the cupola now. it was nighttime, where the sun's getting ready to rise. You can see stars all over the place, and I start to see these streaks of light, and it's like fireflies on the horizon. And what it was other satellites. So in the 6 years, there's been so many satellites added to space that now it's easy to see the sun reflect off those satellites as you're coming up over sunrise, and you start to get this sense of just how congested space really is, and how important it is to keep track of all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so that is it's critical, and there's a connection there, with the Space Force. We're right here co-located to launch into space, and we rely on each other, but then also to keep the station safe. The Space Force is doing its job as well.
Absolutely, the 45th Space Wing, tracking all of the assets in space. Well, we love hearing from you, so keep those questions coming. Just hit us up on Facebook, X, YouTube, or Twitch with the hashtag AskNASA, and we'll get to yours live. T-minus 51 minutes and counting now till liftoff, so let's head out to NASA's Tony Hayamijo, who is standing by live at one of the best viewing spots here at Kennedy. She's joined by NASA's Acting Associate Administrator, Vanessa Weich. Tony.
Hey, thanks, Daryl. That's right. We are out here once again in an amazing viewing location where we can see the rocket at the launch pad. Off to my left here, joining me is Vanessa Weich. Vanessa, we saw you at crew walkout yesterday and also out there today. Did you have a chance to speak with the crew before they headed out to the launch pad? Anything that you told them?
Well, yesterday I had the opportunity to kind of say, hey, we're very excited. We wanted to tell them they were all here. We're cheering for them and excited about their launch. And so that was very exciting on yesterday. And then today we got up and we did it again. And we told them, yes, that we're very excited for them, each and every one of them, and just wish them well. I did have the opportunity to speak with them, 2 days ago, and to speak with them more in a setting where we could talk and talk about the mission that was coming up. Each and every one of them are excited about their mission in different ways, the experiments that they'll have to do, and they're excited about getting to the International Space Station, what they'll do at the International Space Station, the science experiments, the technology, and looking forward to them. They'll be the crew that will be on orbit as we celebrate 25 years of having continuous presence off of the Earth. And so that'll be great. And then they'll also probably be there when we start our celebrations here in the United States of our 250th birthday of the United States. So a very exciting time for this particular crew.
Absolutely. We are all very excited for them to go to station, hoping that happens today. Crew 11 will mark the 12th human spaceflight for SpaceX under NASA's Commercial Crew Program. Can you tell us a little bit more about the significance of maintaining that human presence in space?
Yeah, so we're really great partners that we have with SpaceX, and them being able to get our crew members to the International Space Station. And right now, today, we're working together off the planet, building towards what we're going to be doing, furthering our LEO economy. So as we continue on doing our experiments on the International Space Station, we're also looking at follow-on space stations. And so working together as internationals, as our industry partners on those further new commercial space stations, and then all of the things that we're learning is helping us as we prepare for Artemis. And so with the Artemis missions, we need everyone, all hands on deck. We'll be working together as we go. Right now, we're planning for Artemis 2, and I think right here at the Kennedy Space Center right now, we have our astronauts today. They're still here. They're doing their training for Artemis 2. But their first flight, they'll go and they would do a flyby of the moon, and then next up is landing on the moon. So we're excited that all of us get to work on this together. Our international partners, our industry partners, academia, NASA, we're working on this as one team.
Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us. Now we'll send it back to our team in Hawthorne.
Thanks, Tony. Falcon 9 is the first orbital-class rocket that is capable of reflight. Together, Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy have completed more than 520 launches and over 449 reflights.
And today, the booster will be attempting to make the last landing at Landing Zone 1, which is just down the coast from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Rapid reusability drastically is the key innovation that is making space more accessible. While today's booster is on its third trip to space after most recently supporting AX-4, the fourth private astronaut mission to the International Space Station, we're working towards qualifying our fleet of Falcon boosters and fairings to support 40 missions each. And if you want to keep track, we're currently at 29 flights of a single Falcon booster. This same spirit of continuous iteration and innovation does not stop with Falcon 9. NASA awarded SpaceX a contract to develop the USD Orbit vehicle, a modified Dragon designed to guide the space station through a controlled re-entry into Earth's atmosphere.
And when the time comes and the International Space Station reaches the end of its orbital life and mission, Dragon will help achieve a safe deorbit.
And another innovation SpaceX has been working on is the intravehicular spacesuits, or IVA suits, that astronauts wear during Dragon missions. Our team recently made some design upgrades to make the suit easier to get in and out of, and to make it easier to incorporate future updates. The new suits have height adjustability built in, so they won't need as much customization as with previous designs.
Now you can see the crew right there. The one that's wearing this new suit is astronaut Mike Fink, which is the second one from the left. Today's mission, Fink will be the only one wearing this new suit as the Crew 11 pilot. And that said, we expect to see SpaceX's new IVA suit on all astronauts for Crew 12. But astronauts who have previously flown on SpaceX missions still have the option to continue wearing their original suits. And for the Crew 11 astronauts, they are staying comfortable in their suits right now as they prepare for liftoff while the clock continues to roll back. And we'll check in with Ronnie on the status of today's countdown.
Thanks so much, Joseph. So we are coming up on just under 46 minutes to launch, and our teams are carefully moving through our pre-flight process. Next up in the countdown, we're going to hear SpaceX's launch director check in with the team for readiness. And that's readiness both for propellant load and for launch. As mentioned earlier, the Dragon launch team, as well as key NASA launch members, are in the Launch and Landing Control Center at SpaceX's Hangar X in Florida. Our launch director will also check in with the Dragon mission director, referred to as MD, and the NASA launch manager to make sure they're ready to move forward as well. Of course, our Crew 11 astronauts right now are on board Dragon, waiting to get the green light to stow the crew arm for launch and arm the launch escape system. Got some great shots of our astronauts on the left-hand side of your screen right now, and of course they are safely tucked inside Dragon on the right-hand side. Once we hear that launch director give the go-ahead, we'll get a great view of that access arm moving away from the spacecraft. We are going to stand by here and listen in for that final poll and some instructions to our team in that final lead up to liftoff.
Poll for propellant load and launch is complete. Stand by for briefing on control room procedures. For all operators at MCCX and Hangar X, both control rooms will go into lockdown at T-minus 45 minutes and will remain in that state until LES is disarmed. All operators are to remain at their console and maintain a sterile cockpit until MD confirms successful disarming of the launch escape system following orbital insertion or propellant offload in the event of a scrub. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD and they will approve aborting the count. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into launch abort. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual flight escape rules. Launch control, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
Arming crew arm now.
So we just heard those instructions to our team. Again, we're about to see that crew access arm move away from the spacecraft.
Crew access arm retraction started.
Starting right now. And with that, propellant loading is going to get underway here in a little bit less than 10 minutes. So with that, let's check back in with Daryl and Nick.
And you can see now the crew access arm articulating away from the Dragon Endeavour, where our crew of 4 is inside. That's a beautiful shot there. a big milestone after getting the go from the launch director at SpaceX. A look from inside the crew access arm now and out over the Space Coast. In this moment in between having the crew access arm rotate away and the arming of the launch escape system, there's a little buffer there where the astronauts will be on their own until that can be armed. And then we start tanking the rocket.
Right, so everything is leading up to
Crew access arm retraction
adding
completed.
the propellant, adding the oxidizer, filling those tanks on the rocket. And so what do you need to do to be safe for that? Well, I need to arm the launch escape system, but I don't want to do that when the arm is right next to the capsule. So I need to move the arm away. Now I can arm the launch escape system, and then we can start filling the rocket.
T-minus 41 minutes and counting here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
SpaceX, you are go for Section 6, close visors and arm launch escape system.
Copy. Go for Section 6, closing visors and arming launch escape system.
Here's a beautiful shot from our helicopter looking west. You can see the formation of cumulus clouds in the area. Weather is a watch item for today. The launch weather
SpaceX,
officer.
Dragon, visors closed, arming launch escape system.
SpaceX copies.
The launch weather officer putting it at 60% go for today. The concern is the buildup of cumulus clouds, the ones that you see there building up. There's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. But although you see those clouds around the pad, notice as we start to circle around to the west and look east, clear skies out over the Atlantic Ocean. So when you look at this picture, Nick, you can certainly understand that even though we have clouds that are building in the area, there's an area that we can find over top of this launch complex that we could potentially
system is verified armed.
Get clear enough path to launch this rocket.
Yeah, you just need a hole big enough to launch through. So you don't have to have cloudless skies.
Dragon.
You just need clear enough skies.
Clear enough 10-mile hole would be nice.
I think if we think enough positive thoughts here at the launch site, we can create that bubble.
I'm working on mine.
Me too.
And so we've been listening as they walk through the milestones here, the arming of the launch escape system. This is a critical system. Nick, you know this very well.
Yeah, it's an absolutely critical system. We're just moments away from them getting ready to tank the rocket, fill it up with the kerosene and the liquid oxygen, and before you start to do that procedure and load all of that stored energy onto the rocket, you arm the launch escape system so that if anything goes wrong in a heartbeat, that system can pull that capsule away from the rocket and off to safety.
Commander Nick Hague, when you were commanding Crew 9, you sat through these very same moments in the Dragon, on the launch pad, ready to go.
Yeah, once you press the button to launch to arm the launch escape system, there's a switch in your mind. Now you're sitting on a live rocket. Now everything is primed and ready to go. You are definitely focused on everything leading to T-0 and liftoff.
And that arming of the launch escape system happening just a few seconds from now. We expect it at T-minus 38 minutes. And again, that allows the Draco engines on the Dragon to pull that spacecraft away in the event of an emergency.
This is a beautiful view. One of the things I love about the way Dragon fills its tanks is being able to watch the frost build up when these cryogenic fuels, when you load them onto the rocket, you're going to see it change color. It's a unique experience for a Falcon.
You were talking about the crew inside and the launch escape system. There's a manual option as well if the crew senses something.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a handle that sits on the display panel in between the pilot
Falcon
and
9
the
tanks
commander
are
seat.
venting for the starter propellant load.
And so if something happens, it's within reach for Xena to be able to grab that handle and pull her crew to safety.
So there's that redundancy. You've got the automatic system, and you also have the human factor, which is critically important in a mission like this.
Yeah, even though they're highly automated systems, there's always a manual backup, and even though it's on autopilot essentially all the way to docking, if need be, the commander, the pilot, the crew can intervene those automatics and revert to a manual control.
We are awaiting the beginning of tanking, which is slated for T-minus 35 minutes and counting. You talk about the manual factor. You can also fly this manually, this Dragon Endeavor. And is it through touchscreens?
Yeah, the Dragon has a unique interface. It's a touchscreen panel, so once you activate the manual controls, you have a series of virtual buttons on a touchscreen that you can issue commands that would change the attitude or even change the motion of the capsule.
Beautiful shot there by our Kennedy Space Center flight operations team. And prop load is
The launch auto sequence has started.
And there we have the signal that the automatic prop loading sequence is underway. All of this prop load that loads the 4 tanks, the 2 LOX tanks, and the 2 prop tanks sequentially is now being done. It's fully automated.
Yeah, and highly timed, choreographed so that these super cold liquids don't have an opportunity to boil off too much. And you want to top off the tanks and then launch almost immediately.
It's a highly dynamic time for the crew inside. They can hear, right? The sound of prop load.
Now they're starting to feel Falcon 9 come to life. You hear the pumps and the fuels and the liquids move around. You can hear venting. You'll hear some call outs to warn them about venting. So there's sounds now, the sounds of Dragon. It has its personality, and it starts to come out.
All right, with that, thank you very much, Nick Hague, NASA astronaut, commander of Crew 9, here with us as our co-host today. We'll send it back out to California and SpaceX.
Thanks so much. So as you mentioned, Daryl, propellant loading of both RP-1 and liquid oxygen began at T-minus 35 minutes, and we heard that announcement from Mission Control right on schedule. Weather continues to be our main watch item today, but I'm hearing from our vehicle teams that everything looks good both for Falcon 9 and for Dragon. Next up, at about T-minus 30 minutes, our SpaceX launch director will inform the crew that the loading of cryogenic helium has begun, first on stage 1 and then on stage 2 about 4 minutes later. Stage 2 RP-1 loading should wrap up at T-minus 20 minutes and 30 seconds, and then as we approach T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds, so just 4 minutes later again, we should hear the call out that stage 2 liquid oxygen loading has begun. All together, we're going to have about 1 million pounds of fuel on board Falcon 9 by the time we're ready for liftoff. So with all those consumables being loaded on the rocket, at this point, if we have to call a hold for any reason, we will have to stand down and target our backup launch opportunity, which is tomorrow, Saturday, August 2nd at 11:21 a.m. Eastern. The reason we have a specific backup launch day and time is that we can't just pause for weather and jump back into the countdown, mainly because we have an instantaneous launch window today. Let's dig into that some more and do a little Orbital Mechanics 101. An instantaneous launch window means we need to launch at exactly the right time, and that's driven by our planned rendezvous point, which is the place that Dragon and the space station meet in orbit. Right now, the International Space Station is orbiting the Earth at more than 17,000 miles per hour, and Dragon actually needs to catch up to it. That means we have to deliver Dragon to the correct orbit by timing its trajectory relative to the International Space Station so that they're in the same place in space at the same time. A precise liftoff time is crucial for hitting that rendezvous point. So at this point, if we heard a hold called, we would have to stand down and do many of these processes again, which if you joined us yesterday, we know is what happened with our launch attempt yesterday. And then of course, we'll be targeting our backup launch opportunity, which is now tomorrow at 11:21 a.m. Eastern. So for now, with everything still looking good, I'm gonna hand it back to Somya and Joseph to talk about West Coast recovery. Somya?
We are now at just a little over T plus 31 minutes and counting, getting closer and closer to getting our Crew 11 astronauts into space. Once their mission is complete and it's time for our crew to splash down back on planet Earth, they'll be heading to one of several targeted sites supported by SpaceX. Until recently, Dragon recoveries primarily occurred off the coast of Florida. But this year, SpaceX moved Dragon recovery operations off the coast of California to allow Dragon to complete its deorbit before safely jettisoning the trunk over the Pacific Ocean. When they return, Crew 10 will be SpaceX's third crew mission to splash down in one of the new locations. From 2 was the first in April this year, followed by Axiom 4 in July. The new splashdown locations are near Los Angeles, Oceanside, and San Diego. The recovery vessel Shannon will be stationed in Long Beach to support the new West Coast splashdown operations. Spreading these supported sites across multiple locations helps to maximize the return opportunities, lowering the chance that we will have to wave off due to bad weather. And when the spacecraft re-enters, those in the immediate area may hear a brief double clap of a thunder-like sound known as a sonic boom.
It's been impressive to see these teams move those operations from the East Coast to the West Coast, not only just for SpaceX, but for the Commercial Crew Program, the International Space Station, and teams preparing for yesterday's launch attempt, today's launch attempt, and if necessary, as we continue to monitor the weather, we'll keep an eye out for any future opportunities that come in. So right now, we're inside half an hour to go until the T-minus liftoff point. So let's go back to today's mission, NASA SpaceX's Crew 11, and hear a bit more from the astronauts flying today.
I think it's really innate in our human nature to want to keep exploring and to keep pushing boundaries. Everything that we do in space is ultimately for Earth and for the human species.
We are having a lot of good experiments on orbit, making new medicines. That is actually good for everybody.
By understanding how to live and work in space like we have with the International Space Station, we can now become a multiplanetary species by having bases on the Moon and bases on Mars.
И выполнение полета в космос, на мой взгляд, важно, потому что в конечном счете необходимо человечеству будет двигаться в дальний космос для того, чтобы открывать новые миры, исследовать новые и новые горизонты.
For me, it's a really compelling goal to go farther and farther afield in space and pushing our boundaries as a human species that way, learning more about our own home planet as we try to go farther.
We've been going and living aboard the International Space Station for 25 years. We're ready to make the next steps. We're ready to go to the Moon. We're ready to go to Mars. We're ready to explore the solar system. We understand the effects of what life in space does to the human body. And we need to continue those studies. We need to continue getting ready and get ready and go to the Moon and Mars. And that's why it's important to go to space.
From growing vitamins in space to testing new ways to fight disease, Crew 11 is about to take on some incredible research aboard the International Space Station. First up, Bionutrients 3. The study is looking at how to make essential vitamins and nutrients in space so astronauts can stay healthy on long missions. They'll be testing samples like yogurt, kefir, and a yeast-based drink to see how well they work in microgravity. Next up is Stem Cell XIP1, which uses space to grow stem cells. These cells can turn into any type of cell in the body and could one day help treat diseases like cancer. Growing them in microgravity may produce more cells and better ones than we can make on Earth. And then there's Genes in Space 12. It's testing phage therapy, which uses viruses that target and kill bacteria. It could be a powerful alternative to antibiotics, especially in space, where infections can become harder to treat. A lot of research as well happens on the human body, and you had some research that you did when you were there.
Yeah, every astronaut that goes to the space station can volunteer to be a subject for a plethora of human experiments, and we're learning so much about what affects us, from our immune system all the way down to our bones and our muscles and even the makeup of our DNA. It's fascinating the amount we can learn.
And if you want to know why Nick is able to have such a young look, it's because in space you get older slower. I heard like 0.005 seconds slower.
Yes. That and radiation's good for complexion.
Thank you, Nick, for all your insight. Now let's toss it out to Tony at OSB2.
Hey, thanks, Daryl. Joining us here, we have Dr. Stephen Platts, Dr. Lori Glaze again. Thank you guys both so much for joining us once again on this beautiful day. Steve, Lori, let's discuss the human research that's going to be flying aboard this mission. Can you tell us what the crew will be conducting?
Sure. The Human Research Program is sponsoring 10 research experiments for this particular launch. We're really excited about it. We have cardiovascular studies. We have studies looking at the brain and the eyeball, muscle, skeleton, pretty much everything you can think of. And what we're most excited about is we're really able to focus on some of the biggest risks we have to the human for spaceflight, and we're focusing on how we can better understand everything we need to get to the moon and Mars.
Speaking about the moon and Mars, Lori, can you tell us a little bit more about how this human research help us on those future missions?
You bet. When we start thinking about our future at the moon and Mars, sometimes it seems like science fiction, the idea of having a permanent base on the moon that we can visit, or sending humans to Mars, but we are getting so close. In fact, we're less than a year from the next flight in the Artemis program, which is Artemis 2. We're going to be sending 4 crew for 10 days around the moon. And so we're getting there. The next mission after that will land humans, our crew, on the surface of the moon, first time since 1972, and at the South Pole, where we've never been before. And when we think about those missions that we're going to want to spend time on the surface of the moon or transiting to Mars, we're going to need our crew to be healthy for weeks or months in that transition period, and then be able to perform and execute the science and the exploration when they land in those partial gravity environments. And so it's critically important. We're using the space station, of course. It's a unique laboratory for doing the experiments that Steve's describing, doing things like being able to grow plants that we're going to need for food, so we don't need to bring all of the fresh food with us. Being able to recycle the water for drinking water and other purposes on that journey. Having sensors that can help us detect hazards from solar storms so that the crew can get protection in time. So all this work is critical for us in our planning, and it's getting close, so we need this work now.
Absolutely. Speaking about those experiments on station, Steve, I heard there's a new one coming on this mission. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's called manual piloting, and it's the first time we're flying it, so we're really excited about it. It will really help us with our planning for landing on the moon. And so what we're doing is we're looking at the transitions of gravity. We go from Earth to orbit, and then we're thinking landing on the lunar surface. Those transitions affect the human body, and so they can make you disoriented, they can disturb your balance and things like that. We have special equipment that we can use to simulate landing a vehicle, and so we're going to test the crew before in flight and then after they land in order to see how the body's affected so that we can figure out the best way to keep them safe.
Well, Steve, Lori, thank you both so much for joining us. Now we'll go ahead and get you guys back to the shade, away from the heat, and we'll send it back to our host desk, Nick and Daryl.
Well, we appreciate you all out there. It is cooking outside, so thank you very much for hanging in there. Crew 11's time in orbit will teach us how to keep humans healthy in the space for long haul. Meanwhile, on the moon-facing side of NASA's work, Artemis II astronauts, including Commander Reed Wiseman, are training for a very different challenge, a 10-day mission around the moon. And before they launch, NASA and the Department of Defense are making sure they know how to get home, even in an emergency. Here's Reed with a behind-the-scenes look.
Hi, I'm NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman, commander of Artemis II. I'm here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and as you can see, work is well underway for our next mission to the moon, both on land and off the coast. Back in June, teams with NASA and the Department of Defense used an area of open water off KSC to rehearse procedures for a possible rescue after an ascent abort from the SLS rocket. Instead of using astronauts, they used a set of test mannequins staged inside the crew module test article, a full-scale mock-up of the Orion spacecraft. You can see pararescuers jumped from a plane into the water with their specialized equipment, then approached the spacecraft, opened the capsule, and transported the mannequins to the helicopter safely for medical care. This was one of 2 emergency procedures they rehearsed should they need to rescue me, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy during an abort scenario. And back here on land, now that the upper stage integration is complete inside the vehicle assembly building, teams with NASA's Exploration Ground Systems have been running SLS integrated testing, where they powered up both the core stage and boosters for the first time in preparation for our 10-day journey around the moon. That's a look at your Artemis Moon Minute.
Artemis updates, scan the QR code on your screen that you see in the lower right-hand corner, or just go to the website at nasa.gov/Artemis-Roman numeral 2. And the moon stuff is really cool. The crew today drove by the VAB. There's a moon rocket inside there, and there's a crew that's training right now to go around the moon early next year.
Yeah, and I loved that view as they were driving by because it shows just kind of how connected this whole thing is. You've got a crew 11 getting ready to go to the space station, and a lot of what they're going to do is trying to prove out the things we need to know in order to go to the moon. And at the same time in that frame, you've got Artemis 2 getting ready in the background, and I'm excited to see 4 more colleagues go around the moon.
100%. All right, let's head back now to Hawthorne, California.
Thank you very much, Daryl and Nick. And right now we're preparing.
Fuel load complete.
And that was going to be the update, is that fueling continues to be occurring for the Falcon 9 rocket. As you take a look at it on your screen now, it is a 2-stage rocket that is 229 feet tall and getting ready for liftoff in just a little less than 20 minutes. And at launch, it produces more than 1.7 million pounds of thrust.
And rockets like Falcon 9 don't use all that thrust just to go straight up. Early in flight, Falcon 9 performs a gravity turn, a smooth pitch maneuver that tilts the rocket sideways to build up horizontal velocity. You may hear this call at about 10 seconds into launch as the vehicle is pitching downrange. Once the first stage completes its portion of the mission, it shuts down and separates.
A stage rocket like Falcon 9 sheds the booster to eliminate weight and uncover the Merlin vacuum engine on stage 2. To reach orbit, the vehicle needs to go fast, hitting an orbital velocity of about 28,000 kilometers an hour just to keep from falling back to Earth due to gravity. That's fast enough to lap the Earth in about 90 minutes.
And as we mentioned earlier, after stage separation, today's booster will be landing at Landing Zone 1 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, returning to Earth for its 3rd time. The second stage takes over from there, powered by a single Merlin vacuum engine, also known as the MVAC. With its extended nozzle and optimized design, the MVAC drives maximum performance, producing 220,000 pounds of thrust in the vacuum of space. And getting to space is the first step to building our multi-planetary future. At the top of Falcon 9 today, the crew is sitting inside Dragon Endeavour. There are currently 5 Dragon spacecraft supporting human spaceflight missions: Endeavour, Resilience, Endurance, Freedom, and our 5th and final Dragon, Grace, which just launched the Axiom 4 mission last month. Designed with safety as the highest priority, Dragon is capable of carrying up to 7 passengers to and from Earth orbit.
And Dragon has 16 Draco thrusters that can be used in space to help navigate the spacecraft to its destination, which, of course, is the International Space Station. And those thrusters providing 90 pounds of force. And that doesn't include the 8 Super Draco thrusters used for and aboard, which are no longer active once the crew is in orbit.
To date, Dragon has been to orbit 53 times, including 48 trips to the International Space Station and 18 human spaceflight missions. And as we mentioned earlier, today's Dragon, Endeavour, has been pretty busy, having also flown NASA's Crew 2 mission, Axiom 1, and NASA's Crew 6 and Crew 8 missions. Overall for the Dragon fleet, this will be Dragon's 49th visit to the space station and its 19th human spaceflight mission overall, and the 5th Dragon flight just this year. Dragon is the first private spacecraft to take humans to the orbiting lab, having flown 300,000 pounds of cargo and more than 1,000 experiments to space, as well as 70 crew members representing 20 countries. Our versatile Dragon spacecraft can autonomously dock with the International Space Station when outfitted with a docking adapter, which is just how it's configured for today's flight. And when it's not going to the space station and it's in free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out for a cupola, as it was back during the Inspiration 4 mission. And another option we have is the Skywalker hardware, which supports extravehicular activities or spacewalks, as we did during the Polaris Dawn mission. And here's some interesting trivia. There has been a Dragon in space for 1,358 consecutive days since Crew 3.
And that's an impressive stat, too. And with T-minus 0...
Stage 2 LOX load has started.
And with T-minus 0 coming up in just about a little more than 18 or 16 minutes or so from now, our team's continuing to do a series of system checks to ensure Dragon,
SpaceX for status update. Dragon and Falcon 9 are healthy, and we continue to load propellant. Weather is still our watch item. We are seeing some development in the area, so this is going to come down to a matter of time. We're going to keep an eye on it and continue marching towards T0, and we'll see if we manage to thread the clouds today.
Okay, Dragon copies. We've got a healthy rocket, healthy Dragon. Weather is continuing to develop. We'll keep going until we can't.
And great communications there between the team on the ground and with Crew 11 on board. And that's exactly what we're keeping an eye on, is not only the tanking of the rocket and that procedures, but also today's weather. And you heard that update right there. So to continue with the updates and kind of bring us up to speed on what's been going on, let's toss it to our teammate and Ronnie.
Thanks so much, Joseph. I can give you a little bit more color than we just heard, but obviously the important things we've heard are that we are still on track for an on-time liftoff today, but we're monitoring lots of different factors as we get closer to liftoff. If everything goes as expected, this is also going to be our last landing at LZ-1 today. So lots of different launch pads, landing sites, staging areas, lots of things in play. But the best news is that both Dragon and Falcon 9 continue to be healthy. You heard us wrap up Stage 2 RP1 loading just after T-minus 20 minutes, and Stage 2 liquid oxygen will begin here at about, or has begun already, excuse me. We've also heard that call out that the launch escape system is armed. Of course, the launch escape system, which we discussed in more detail yesterday, is designed to propel Dragon away from Falcon 9 in the unlikely event of an emergency during launch. We've also heard from the Eastern Range, which is monitoring keep-out zones among other key flight requirements today. They're continuing to report no issues, and they are go to support today's launch, weather depending. So again, as you just heard, weather is a watch item. We're now tracking a 60% chance of violation at our target liftoff time, with isolated showers in the staging area and some clouds building right over the launch pad. You are actually seeing them continue to grow on your screen right now. For now, though, we are go for the 6th mission of Dragon Endeavour, and I want to hand it back over to Sandra for a status update from Houston. Sandra?
Thanks, Ronnie. Back here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, teams are continuing to work around the clock to monitor activities aboard the orbital outpost. Leading the team inside the room today is NASA Flight Director Anthony Varia. The team in Mission Control Houston, the team in Hawthorne, and the astronauts aboard the space station will track the autonomous docking of Dragon Endeavour when they enter joint operations. This will happen when the spacecraft enters the approach ellipsoid, which is the invisible boundary, stretching 4 by 2 by 2 kilometers that helps us monitor all arriving and departing spacecraft. It's essentially the neighborhood of the International Space Station. Once docked, crew members in both Dragon and aboard the International Space Station will perform a series of leak checks, then work to open the spacecraft's hatch for Crew 11 to float into the space station and begin their stay. We anticipate that the hatch will be opened about an hour and a half after docking occurs, and when they enter the orbital outpost, Crew 11 will be greeted by the rest of their Expedition 73 crew and will come together for some opening remarks. For now, that's going to be all for us today here in Mission Control as the anticipation builds for launch in less than 13 minutes now. So how's it looking on the Space Coast, Daryl?
Well, Sandra, we wish it was looking better. We've just had a downgrade in the weather forecast from 60% go to only 40% go. The launch weather officer informing us that conditions are ripe, and we have even seen the development of cumulus clouds in the area, some that could trigger lightning if a rocket went through them. So this is a very high watch item at this moment, Nick.
Yeah, they're watching it to everybody is focused on crew safety at this point, making sure that we make the right call. But there's a chance, and I'll stay positive.
You've been positive. I appreciate that about you. You've done that throughout the broadcast. Here's a look from our helicopter flying over the spaceport right now. And this is the formation of the clouds that is a concern because it is so humid out right now. And we've got a sea breeze that is flowing over the warm land. It is just creating this convection around the spaceport. In fact, we are also expecting to go into a Phase 1 lightning alert, which I hate to say it, but just before we scrubbed yesterday, Dick, that Phase 1 lightning alert went into effect. So things are starting to stack up against us weather-wise. But nonetheless, it's at this point, because this is a fully automated fueling sequence, it behooves us to just continue to march to see if anything might just clear at the end.
Yeah, so there's been nothing that happened up to this point to stop the countdown. So proceed to T-0, and if the timing works out and the weather hasn't built to a significant enough level and it's safe to go, then let's go.
Absolutely, and it is an instantaneous window. So we are launching at 11:43 and 42 seconds. So it is literally the weather at that second that matters. And that's where we hope to see some type of positivity in that moment. But it's certainly something that all eyes are on around the Space Coast to see if this rocket is going to go today. In just about 20 seconds, we are going to hear from Zena Cardman, and she's going to say some words, Nick. She has some moving things to say.
Yeah, Zena is an amazing person, and watching her, along with Stephanie.
Dragon SpaceX confirmed crew displays are configured for launch.
You can.
SpaceX Dragon displays are configured for launch. To our family, friends, all who support us at SpaceX, NASA, JAXA, Roscosmos, thank you. Spasibo, arigato gozaimasu. For this freedom to explore, resilience to endure, may grace fly alongside this endeavor.
Crew 11, from all of us on the ground, we've enjoyed working with you in preparation for your mission. We look forward to continuing to do so in flight. Good luck. Enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and Zena, hitting the tone I would expect her to do. She is the consummate professional. Big message of thank you.
Yeah. The gratitude, the team focus, freedom, resilience. These are big themes. These are things that are important to her, and some great words from her. Let's send it now back out to our commentary team for the final minutes of Countdown. Joseph and Samya, take it away.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Nick. And that was beautiful what Zena had to say in reflecting on family and friends, but also that great shot you saw in that 2-box. That was from the International Space Station, that view as the space station actually going right over Florida and the Cape. So it's not just those on the ground that are excited. It's their teammates aboard the orbiting laboratory as well. Well, we're closing in on launch, 8.5 minutes away. It'll be about a 9-minute ride to orbit, which is around the time of the second stage cutoff. Dragon and the second stage will continue to coast for a few minutes after that, and then prior to separation. You'll be hearing some performance calls as we get into the final countdown and then after liftoff. These are SpaceX flight controllers reporting on trajectory, speed, booster, and performance, and the key milestones, but there are some other calls that you'll hear the crew make as well after liftoff. The crew will report out a few number and letter combinations, which mark different abort zones throughout the flight uphill and up the eastern seaboard. The first two, 1A and 1B, those are abort modes available while the first stage is firing. Now, the second are 2A through 2E. Those will come into play once the second stage kicks in, and then though we'll only hear the 2A call out from the team. Diverting a little bit from that naming system, you'll also hear the call Shannon, which refers to Shannon, Ireland. This call means the crew could target off the coast of Ireland if they needed to abort late in that second stage burn. You'll hear these different calls throughout the flight uphill, along with key performance callouts from the guidance, navigation, and control officers, and also the propulsion lead. So we're closing in on T-minus now 7 minutes, and we continue to keep an eye on the weather.
One of the next callouts we're listening for is that stage 1 engine chill has started. That's coming up in just a few seconds. And that is a key process that prepares the engines for flight.
Engine chill has started.
Right on time. Right now, propellant in the tanks is isolated from the engines, but we'll open the engine pre-valves and start trickling some liquid oxygen through the Merlin engine pumps, chilling the engines for the start sequence. We do this because the super chilled and densified liquid oxygen is really, really cold, and we use this process to bring the engine hardware down to a cooler temperature before flowing all of the LOX and propellant into it during flight. At liftoff, Falcon 9 is consuming 700 gallons of fuel per second, so engine chill helps us to prevent thermal shock and ensures nominal engine performance. Shortly after, we should also hear the call out for stage 1 RP1.
Stage 1 fuel load complete.
Right on time.
So now that engine chill is underway, we're looking ahead to the call out that RP1 load is complete, which just occurred a moment ago, and again, prevents that thermal shock. You got to stretch before you can start running. And RP1 is densified kerosene or rocket fuel that will propel the crew into orbit. And all of that RP1 is now about to be fully loaded into the rocket, since we previously heard that the second stage is completed, or about to be completed here in just a couple moments. And then while we're still loading liquid oxygen on that first stage and second stages. This is the oxidizer that is needed to combine with the densified kerosene that just finished up loading. The RP1 liquid propellant needs an oxidizer to combine with everything in order to ignite. Coming up at the 5-minute mark, we'll hear the call for Dragon to configure for terminal count and then transition over to internal power. And that should be happening in about a little less than 30 seconds from now as we continue to close in on that T-0 mark.
So next up in the countdown, the transporter erector, or TE, will begin to retract from Falcon 9. That is the large truss structure you see there standing next to the rocket. It's hinged at the base and connected to the launch mount beneath the first stage. First, the clamps around the second stage will begin to
Falcon
open.
9 tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
And we're hearing good callouts.
Dragon is in, configure for terminal count.
And we're continuing to hear great callouts over the nets. Then the TE will begin to pivot back, slowly swinging away from the rocket, and it will reach full recline in just about a minute.
Strong back retract has started.
And we are just beginning that strong back retraction process. It's called the strong back. It's also called the TE, or transport erector. Same structure, different name. The TE does a lot more than just lean. It rolls Falcon 9 out to the pad, raises it vertical, and stays connected through the final seconds. It provides fuel, power, telemetry, and command connections between ground systems and the rocket. Those clamps at the top help stabilize the second stage during fueling, and they also help prevent movement in high winds. And once they open, which you can see on your screen, they are slowly pulling away. And once they open fully, the rocket is fully free at the top.
Propellant continues to be loaded late here in the countdown as we're approaching 3 minutes and 30 seconds. We're continuing to keep an eye on the weather, and that's going to be the biggest thing as everything continues to march towards that liftoff timeline. But you can see there the strongback starting to move ever so slowly away from the rocket. The clamp arms are open, and you also see those white clouds starting to billow off the rocket itself. Those are perfectly normal as it's the coolness of the propellant on board is mixing with that warm Florida air, and that's what causes that boil off, and that you heard Nick talk about it earlier when you have that steam come off the rocket, so it looks like a lot of clouds billowing off it as well. But approaching the T-minus 3 minute mark, and that's when
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
And that's what I was about to say, is that you're going to hear that liquid oxygen load be complete. So everything is primed and pretty much ready to go. And you'll see, again, those white clouds of vapor and a great view of the entire rocket as we continue to build closer to launch. And, of course, liquid oxygen, super chilled.
Dragon
so a
is
little
in
bit
terminal count and on internal power.
boils off in that warm Florida air. And now, load complete. We're on internal power. And we're also going to hear gas closeouts are going to start to begin as well. And then everything will get vented overboard through the umbilicals and strongback, and you may hear some of that venting noise come in soon.
So LOX is still loading for approximately another 20 seconds on stage 2, and once that is complete, we'll vent down the TE, which will produce a white cloud off the side of the rocket, which is normal and expected, just as Joseph had mentioned. And once LOX load is fully complete, that will mean that there are 1 million pounds of propellant loaded onto Falcon 9, which will be RP1 and liquid oxygen. So that call out coming up.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
Right there.
So we just heard that confirmation of stage 2 liquid oxygen now complete, as we are now 1 minute and 50 seconds away from launch. We'll also hear that the gas closeouts have started, so we can expect
Dragon
loud
is
venting.
in auto idle.
You heard the call for auto idle. That puts the rocket in a state that the flight computers understand before it takes over, making sure that transition to the final countdown is smooth and that all flight computers on board are in sync
Ground gas
and configured.
closeouts, expect loud venting.
Configured for launch, and there's the closeouts we've been talking about and the venting that will be shortly followed. One minute and 10 seconds to liftoff of NASA SpaceX Crew 11.
FTS is armed. Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling.
Dragon is in countdown.
Flight computers switching to countdown mode now.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
SpaceX, Dragon, go for launch.
Seconds. Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Ignition's full power and liftoff. Go Thomas, go NASA, go Crew 11.
Together we rise as NASA SpaceX Crew 11 heads up to the International Space Station.
Vehicles pitching down range.
1.7 million pounds
Stage
of
1
thrust.
propulsion is nominal.
Propelling Falcon 9 as the vehicle pitching down range and making its way up the East Coast, and will soon join Expedition 73 aboard the orbiting laboratory. So far, getting good callouts on that first stage performance.
We are now T plus 35 seconds into the Crew 11 mission on board Dragon and Falcon 9. The Falcon 9 engines
Stage 1 throttle down.
Are throttling down to help
Power and telemetry are nominal.
to help pass through the period of max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle during ascent.
Max Q.
We just had max Q right there.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
1 minute, 9 seconds into what is a little bit more
Stage
less
1
than
throttle up.
a 9-minute flight uphill as Dragon continuing.
Stage 1 Bravo.
copy. 1 Bravo.
And that 1 Bravo, again, that's the abort zone, that last abort zone for stage 1 if necessary. The crew already pulling over 2 Gs. And next, we're going to have a couple of events happen in rapid succession. We'll be getting ready for the second stage to warm up and have this second stage MVAC chill. And then we'll also have MECA, or main engine cutoff, where the 9 engines on the first stage will cut off ahead of the first and second stages. Will then be separating from one another. And then the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and continue to carry Crew 11 to orbit, while the first stage begins its journey back to Earth, as we're now 1 minute and 56 seconds into today's flight.
The 9 Merlin engines are starting to throttle down and are standing by for MECA, or main engine cutoff.
MVAC chill has started.
And we just heard that call out for MVAC chill. And coming up in under like 20 seconds, we have 5 events happening back to back. MECA,
Stage 1 throttle down.
Stage separation, stage 1 flip, SES1, and the start of boost back burn. It's going to be pretty quick, so keep a close eye on the action and the mission event
Main engine cutoff.
tracker at the bottom of your screen.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage 2 Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed.
2 Alpha.
MVAC ignition.
And there you see stage 1 pulling away, ignition of the lone Merlin vacuum engine for stage 2. And again, those happening in quick succession as we continue to get great views of that Florida coastline and the eastern seaboard there, as Crew 11 continuing its path to orbit, now approaching 3 minutes into today's flight. Still a little ways to go, about 6 minutes left, as they continue to climb their way up and eventually track down the International Space Station. And there, great see, you see the Merlin vacuum engine, the second stage on the right-hand side, and great views of the first stage that's making its return to Earth on the left. About 5.5 minutes of powered flight remaining as we continue to monitor the progress of both vehicles, stage 2 and Crew 11, making the climb uphill, and stage 1 looking to land again at landing zone 1, the last landing at that location for this Falcon 9 booster.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Dragon copy.
We're continuing to hear great call outs over the nets that both Dragon and Falcon are right on track to orbit. So the first stage booster is now on its way to landing zone 1, and we just saw those grid fins open up on the left-hand side of your screen. The first stage has a couple events ahead of its landing. Stage 1 will start its entry burn, which will be the second of 3 burns to return the booster a few miles from its launch site at landing zone 1. During this entry burn, Falcon 9 will use its engines to pump the brakes to slow the vehicle down before it reaches the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. And if you didn't know, Falcon 9 has a complex heat shield that is designed to protect the engines and the vehicle from all that combined thermal and aerodynamic loading during max entry Q, which is the moment of max stress on the vehicle during entry. And that will be followed by a landing burn. And this burn will last for about...
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Continuing to hear good call-outs.
Great performance calls continue as we're now 5 minutes into today's flight. Still about 8.5 to go. A little bit more than that as the second stage continuing to perform nominally on the right-hand side. 2,400 meters per second. Crew 11 cruising into the upper echelons of the Earth's atmosphere while we continue to monitor the second stage on that left-hand side. And we'll also get continued guidance and navigation call-outs from the control officers here in SpaceX. Dragon is pointed in the right direction and continuing its flight. And again, that second stage going to continue firing until close to that 9-minute mark into flight, and accelerating Dragon to more than 17,000 miles per hour and placing the crew in orbit. And you'll hear good orbital insertion would be that call out. There's the single Merlin vacuum engine that can produce over 220,000
SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
pounds of thrust on that nominal trajectory you're hearing right now. And into the vacuum of space. Now approaching 6 minutes into today's flight, about 2 minutes and 40 plus seconds remaining.
We are coming up on the entry burn, which is just under 30 seconds from now. And so you'll see the first stage's center Merlin engine reignite as it comes back down to Earth. And after that, we will be approaching.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there's the beginning of entry burn right there. Again, this is the second of 3 burns to return the booster to landing zone 1.
Burn shutdown.
We just made it through entry burn.
And you're getting some great views, too, on that stage 1's return to the Florida coastline. Again, landing at landing zone 1. While on the right-hand side, the second stage. And that Merlin vacuum engine continuing to propel Crew 11.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Into orbit. And
Dragon copies.
And again, great. And now with about 2 minutes left of powered flight remaining, still receiving those great calls from the crew on the ground. And we're getting those relays from Crew 11 Commander Zena Cardin.
Stage 1 transonic.
We are now very quickly approaching the start of our landing burn, where 3 engines, engines 1, 5, and 9, will relight to help slow the vehicle down just before it touches down on landing zone 1. We should hopefully have some great tracking shots of that.
Stage 1 landing burn. Stage 2 FTS is saved. Stage 1 landing leg deployed.
Fantastic return there of the stage 1 booster.
West Point, completing our final planned landing at LV1.
So a successful landing of the first stage booster as we continue to follow along with a little less now than 1 minute of powered flight of the second stage. And you'll hear the call out SECO, or second engine cutoff, is a great view there, glowing orange with the Earth eclipsing right around that Merlin vacuum engine, and everything continuing to perform nominally for NASA
Stage 2
SpaceX
is in
Crew 11.
terminal guidance.
About 20 more seconds remaining of powered flight, and we'll get those call outs here shortly as everything continuing.
Shannon.
Copy, Shannon.
And there's the great call out for Shannon we talked about earlier, that last abort zone if necessary, where they can land off the coast of Shannon, Ireland.
SECO.
There we just heard that good call out for SECO, or second engine cutoff. Coming up next will be stage separation.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
And that's the great call you want to hear. A good look inside the trunk there as you're looking for that separation, but you wanted to hear that nominal orbital insertion as Crew 11 now has reached microgravity.
So now we'll continue to coast for a little bit after SECO to allow rates and motion from the burn to settle out. Right now we have a great view on our screen of the Dragon heat shield, actually, which is made up of similar materials. And there we have that Dragon and stage 2 separation as we see Dragon coast into its orbit.
And a wonderful view there is Dragon Endeavour with Crew 11 on board. Safe.
Dragon separation confirmed.
And safe and...
Dragon, Chief Engineer on Dragon to ground. Zena, Mike, Kimya, Oleg, welcome to orbit. On behalf of the entire Falcon team, we thank you for flying with Falcon today and wish you a great mission. Dragon will take you from here. Over to Launch Director for a few words.
On behalf of the launch team, it's been an absolute honor working with you towards launch today. We wish you well on the rest of your mission, and we will be awaiting your safe return. Godspeed Endeavour, Godspeed Crew 11, and thanks for flying SpaceX.
SpaceX, Dragon, I have no emotion but joy right now. That was absolutely transcendent. Ride of a lifetime. Thank you. This has been an incredible honor. And it's my privilege now to pass us along to Mike with some additional words.
Boy, it's great to be back in orbit again. Thank you to SpaceX and NASA to get us here. What a ride. And Zena and Oleg, let me be the second to welcome you to your first orbit around beautiful planet Earth. Kimya-san, Okayeri Nasai, welcome back. And to the ISS Expedition 73 team, the crew on board and our friends in MCC, we're on our way. Over to you, Kimya-san.
Okay, thank you very much for everything. スパシバワンボイショーへありがとうございます。日本の皆さん、私も10年ぶりに宇宙に帰ってきました。ISS でしっかりと任務を果たして一等星のように輝いて、日本の素晴らしいところを世界中の人に知っていただきたいと思います。ありがとうございます。Я передаю Олег-сан, пожалуйста.
Спасибо, Kimya-san. Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu. And спасибо всем. I'd like for the beginning to say thank you very much, Roscosmos, SpaceX, and NASA for this unique opportunity to be here with my great crew. Дорогие друзья, находясь на космическом корабле и облетая нашу родную планету, я испытываю неописуемое счастье и восторг. Хочу выразить слова благодарности всей нашей стране, Соединенным Штатам Америки и России за эту уникальную возможность, а также Роскосмосу. Хочу выразить слова благодарности своей школе, в которой я учился, номер 103 в городе Челябинске, выразить благодарность Краснодарскому высшему военному авиационному училищу летчиков и 22-му гвардейскому истребительному авиационному полку, а также сотрудникам Центра подготовки космонавтов, кто искренне верил и болел за эту идею отправить меня в космос. Обещаю выполнить все поставленные передо мной задачи на отлично. Ура!
Crew 11, we copy all of your words. We are very excited for you to have reached orbit, and we will now proceed with getting you to the International Space Station. You have approximately 3 minutes left in this ground station pass if you'd like to introduce your 0G indicator.
Copy all, Tremaine. Thank you so much. We'll get out our 5th crew member here in just a moment. This 0G indicator honors a shared memory with our lead trainer, Paul Weiss. For all the mentors and team members who got us here through sacrifice of time and dedication, I hope we made you proud today. Thank you so much.
Some great words there from all 4 members of Crew 11 and the astronauts and cosmonauts, all that cadre. They're well on their way to the final destination, which they have about a 16-hour ride to do so, and the phasing to ultimately the International Space Station, where they will turn that group into a full group of 11. So only fitting for Crew 11.
To summarize where we are with vehicle activation, we've had nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts. We're currently opening the nose cone.
We have just gotten confirmation that nose cone...
Tracking copies all, and we'll be ready for visors open with ECOS activation complete.
We just had great comms that nose cone deploy is underway. The 6 hooks that hold the nose cone in place during the launch and ascent portions have to retract, and then the nose cone will be able to start to swing open and deploy. This uncovers a number of critical systems for the flight up to the space station, including the forward bulkhead thrusters and the docking hatch. And that call from the core here in Hawthorne indicating that we had good checkouts of the 12 Draco thrusters around the service section. 4 to go after we get the nose cone open and the ECLIS, the environmental control and life support system, activated inside Dragon. Soon the crew will be able to get their visors open and get out of their suits and settle in for their ride to the space station.
And we'll continue to get those call outs and hear about the nose cone again. Right now, currently opening. The hooks have been opening, and they were doing so during the great words from the crew. So we'll continue to monitor and waiting as the nose cone is deploying at the moment. And we'll wait for that final confirmation that it is open. And Crew 11 can continue its journey on as we await those last few moments here as nose cone deployment currently underway. And a great view of Dragon as it went up the eastern seaboard, and we had a view for a moment there as, again, passing over ground stations And that's what provides us the great views that you've been seeing throughout today's broadcast inside the Dragon spacecraft. And there's a great look at that single Merlin vacuum engine that helped propel Crew 11 into orbit. And a great view of looking outward across the arch of the Earth.
Despite all of the weather issues we were having on ground leading up to launch, we seem to be having some really clear, amazing views in space today.
And now 16 and a half minutes into flight, you're right, it was threading the needle, but they were able to get up and above the clouds, and even watching that ascent for stage one was wonderful to see them bypass those clouds that we were talking about a lot today. But again, as we await for further views inside the Dragon spacecraft and from their pursuit, Crew 11 to the International Space Station, we're now standing by for nose cone deploy as the team on the ground in Hawthorne, California, right there inside SpaceX Mission Control, actively monitoring all of those systems. You mentioned the Eclipse system inside, and once everything checks the appropriate boxes, then Crew 11 can doff or get out of their spacesuits, those new IVA suit for Mike Fink and company. And then from there, it's going to be about a 16-hour ride to the International Space Station, and that's where they will link up with the orbiting laboratory and the 7 current residents on there. Crew 10 is currently on board, as well as Soyuz MS-27 with NASA astronaut Johnny Kim, and they'll bring that 7 to a team of 11, hopefully in the early morning hours coming up tomorrow. So we continue to stand by, approaching 18 minutes into today's flight.
We are just waiting confirmation that the nose cone is fully deployed, but all hooks are open. We should be hearing that confirmation hopefully within the next minute or so. And hopefully we'll also have great views of that nose cone deploy.
And that's a great view on the right-hand side of the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Houston, Texas, at NASA's Johnson Space Center, where we got updates throughout the day today from Sandra Jones as the International Space Station monitoring today's flight and the ascent of NASA SpaceX Crew 11. And they pulled goal earlier on as they are ready to receive Dragon. And we just received confirmation that the nose cone has completely opened and deployed. So great news, as again, all those checkouts continuing to happen for Crew 11 after a successful on-time liftoff today. And they were able to get past the clouds, the weather that we've been monitoring, and a successful first stage and second stage performance to propel them into orbit. Crew 11 is comprised of NASA astronauts Zena Cardman and Mike Fink, along with JAXA astronaut Kimia Ewing and Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Platonov. And they are now safely in orbit following that approximately 9-minute ride after liftoff today from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The crew now, as mentioned, has a little bit about a 16-hour journey before they reach their destination.
Dragon SpaceX, we see a nominal nose cone opening at TCS and 4 bulkhead to Draco checkouts.
Great call out right there.
Dragon copies all. Good news.
And that's what we were waiting for there, was that call up to crew.
Looking forward in the timeline, you have your first burn up on your forward view. That's the phase burn in approximately 25 minutes. We will also be monitoring the stage 2 deorbit to give you the go for suit doffing, and we're expecting that at T plus 45 minutes.
Dragon copies. We'll be monitoring, and T plus 45 approximately for suit doffing. We're with you in the timeline.
Great conversations there with the team on the ground, and there they are, Crew 11. Happy as can be in orbit now, and they have a 16-hour journey before they reach their destination, the International Space Station, as docking currently targeted for tomorrow morning, Saturday, August 2nd at 3 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 a.m. Pacific, to the space-facing port of the station's Harmony module. Now, between now and then, Dragon will perform a series of burns as it catches up to the space station. And that first burn you heard him talking about is the phase burn, and that happens about 30 minutes or so from now. So we'll continue to monitor the Dragon spacecraft, or the teams on the ground will continue to monitor that first of a sequence of burns to help them stair-step their way up to the International Space Station.
Human spaceflight has come so far in the last 5 years with Dragon. In addition to flying people, SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft also enables researchers the opportunity to fly critical science to orbit. So far, SpaceX and Dragon have carried more than 1,000 research experiments to and from low Earth orbit, both to the International Space Station and on our free flyer missions. From DNA sequencing to 3D printing, studies enabled by Dragon and the space station test a variety of technologies, systems, and materials that will be needed for future long-duration exploration missions. Every mission yields critical science, critical research, and learnings that help make life both on Earth and in space better. And flights just like today's help us continue to lay this foundation for our future among the stars and continue our mission to make life multiplanetary. We'll be signing off from SpaceX for now, so we're going to send you back over to Kennedy Space Center. But before we go, we want to thank NASA, Joseph, for entrusting us with today's mission, and thank you all for being with us today.
Well, thank you very much, Soumya, Ronnie, and the teams here at SpaceX. It was another phenomenal opportunity to catch NASA SpaceX Crew 11 in orbit today. And with that, we're going to say goodbye from here in Hawthorne until we pick back up with our docking coverage beginning at 2 a.m. Saturday, August 2nd, tomorrow, for that targeting docking to the space-facing port of the station's Harmony module at 3 a.m. Eastern. So for now, thank you for joining us, and we're going to toss it back over to Nick and Daryl at Kennedy Space Center to wrap up today's launch coverage.
Great job. If you're just joining us, welcome back to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Daryl Nail here with NASA astronaut Nick Hague. Just moments ago, we saw Crew 11 safely on orbit with the nose cone open, checkouts complete, and a few words from the crew as they settled into their new environment aboard Dragon. And Nick, watching him in that moment, floating free, you must feel good about your friends and colleagues successfully getting to orbit today.
Absolutely. At the moment of liftoff, the tingle on the back of your neck, the chills, and watching them go into orbit, and then to hear them call down after they're there safely, the joy in their voice, and then the gratitude for the teams that got them there. Just you can't help but feel awesome right now. Everybody that's associated with this launch.
And now it comes, a completion for Zena Cardman, the commander who was part of Crew 9. Was pulled off that mission. You continued on. This is now her chance. Now she's in space. She had to wait a little bit longer, but now finally gets to fly.
Yeah, it's a full circle moment, and it's a thrill to be here and just be part of it.
We appreciate you from the very start saying that you wanted to document this moment with her here at the Kennedy Space Center, watching them go up at that moment. Mike Fink has been around for a while. He's a veteran astronaut, but there's been quite a gap. He finally now, after 14 years, back up in space.
Yeah, talk about patience being a key quality of an astronaut. It's not just sitting strapped into a rocket for 2.5 hours prior to launch and not being able to move. It's, doing your job and waiting for your opportunity, and that might be a decade or more, and to take that time and to do so much with it while you're still waiting to launch into space, it just shows the character that he has. Incredible
Character and incredible character is Mike. Well, quick story here. We want to tell you, when Zena Cardman was here and she did the co-host role for Crew 9 when you launched. After the launch broadcast was over, she pulled out a deck of cards and just offhandedly was like, oh, hey, I want to show you something. And she showed me this deck of cards. It was the Crew 9 deck of cards. And she had hand-drawn the portraitures of like each of the Crew 9 members, which included you, and she was on it, though she didn't get to fly. It was the card deck that you used when you played to get rid of your bad luck.
Yeah, in the suit-up room,
Right. And so I'm like, you hand drew these? I was like super impressed. So, of course, fast forward to recently, you walk in the pre-production meeting and you're like, hey, Zena wants to have this deck of cards. It's the Crew 11 deck of cards, and we want to show them to you now. And she redrew her crew. And we want to show those to you. Hold that up.
She's an amazing artist.
All the crew members each got a face card. So she's on there, Oleg's on there, Mike and Kimya. And here they are. She hand drew this. We have a close-up of this shot. We want to show you so you can get a real full appreciation. Hand-drawn portraitures by Zena Cardman, the commander. You talk about many talents. Just another talent in what appears to be just this extremely well-rounded astronaut and commander.
Oh, absolutely. not all astronauts are created equal. I cannot do that. She is talented.
That's incredible. And of course, they played with this deck of cards when they got rid of Zena's bad luck today.
Yeah, and it worked.
And it worked. Look at that weather. We were looking at the cloud just off to the south.
You know, the power of positive thinking.
Your positive thinking was like, perfect. All right, we're going to send it back out for one more interview with Tony. And in the meantime, you and I are going to play some high-low card for your next space assignment. See if I can win it from you. Tony, take it away.
Thanks, Daryl. Looking forward to who wins that game. Joining me is now Stephen Chan with the Commercial Crew Program. Stephen, what an amazing launch and landing of Falcon's first stage. How you feeling?
That was amazing, Tony. To watch the Crew 11 Dragon flying up on the Falcon 9, it's incredible, to see that. On a personal note, Mike Fink is a dear friend of the family, and it warms my heart to see him to go back to space station to work and live there. I am the external liaison for the Commercial Crew Program, so it's my job to make sure that our external partners are coordinated and informed to support our missions, and those partners include Coast Guard, FAA, Air Force, Space Force, and other DoD partners. Today, the Coast Guard is out there making sure the waterway is safe, and FAA is clearing the waterway. So it is. I get to see how much work it goes behind the scenes to make sure our missions are successful, and I am looking forward to have the Crew 11 get on orbit and then come back safely with Crew 10.
Steve, you played a critical role in changing the splashdown locations for Dragon to the Pacific Ocean. Can you talk to us a little bit about your role in that and the significance in changing those splashdown locations?
Yes, the moving Dragon recovery to Pacific all had to do about the safety of the public, and the trunk debris. By going to the Pacific, we ensure that the trunk is entered over Pacific Ocean and have no risk at all to the public. So, and thanks to our external partners, we work with them to make sure that the Dragon can be recovered safely, and they can perform their important missions, like keeping the waterway safe, keeping the airspace safe, and then the DoD can perform their missions around California coast.
Speaking about all of those external partners that you have to work with, it took a huge effort to get this underway. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that worked?
Yes, so for our West Coast partners, the Dragon landing in the Pacific is a new challenge for them. And they have, as I mentioned earlier, they have their other national priorities. So we are very thankful to our partners and their leadership who recognize that Dragon is also a very important national priority. So we're very thankful to our Coast Guard, Navy, other DoD partners, and FAA that help us make that happen. And I'm looking forward to work with them to bring Crew 10 home safely. They have, SpaceX has successfully brought back 3 Dragon the last few months. And we are confident they can help us get there in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Steve. We just launched, but like you said, we now have the rest of the mission. We have to bring Crew 10 home. Can you tell us what are the next steps for you? Where will you be going next?
We'll be working with SpaceX and our government partners to make sure we look at those reentry opportunities and coordinate and inform each other, all the important activities. So it's just a lot of coordination, and we're thankful that our partner worked with us on this national priority.
Absolutely. Well, we wish you the best of luck on the rest of the mission. Thank you so much for joining us. And now we'll send it back to Daryl and Nick.
All right. Thank you so much, Tony. And certainly you can hear the emotion in people's voices, especially Stephen here. Just so proud of seeing Mike Fink. He has touched a lot of people here at the Kennedy Space Center in his time working with everyone here throughout the Commercial Crew Program.
Yeah, absolutely. He has had an impact.
And you had an impact on me. I lost to you for your next space assignment.
So we need to clear the record here because you tried to stack the deck and karma won out there because you dealt me the ace by accident. So I'm sorry. That's just the way it goes.
Thank you for being so truthful and honest. Is this show over yet? No, you know what? We're excited for you, Nick. We can't wait to see what you do next as well. You've brought so much experience and insight and knowledge to this show, and I know that you wanted from the very beginning, after you launched, you told me that you wanted to do this for Xena, for your friends, for your colleagues, for your team. And you're a stand-up guy telling us early on, like, hey, I'll be there and I'll do it. Thank you very much for that.
No, my pleasure.
Can you take one more social question before we bug out?
We didn't hit 8 yet, so yes.
Let's do it. One more social question. Let's see if we can get it fired up here. Yes, Aaron Anzar is the winner with, what is your best memory as an astronaut? Well, you can imagine there are so many memories that are created. I've listened to you for a couple days now.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to hear each and every one that you remember. But what would you put as the number one memory?
You know, the image, if I try to sum up my 12 years of doing this job, the image that kind of brings it all together in my mind is just another Friday night floating around the table in the Russian service module, having dinner with our playlist. It's an eclectic playlist of music that mixes in everybody's favorites. So you've got Russian traditional folk music and hard rock and American country western, and it's just the culture that the crew has built, and me trying to talk with my cosmonaut colleagues in broken Russian, and them talking to me in broken English, and we develop our own language, and we're sharing what's going on with our families, and birthdays and anniversaries. It's just life, and we've built that in space. And there's just so many unique aspects, just how you're eating and people are floating around, that it's so normal. It becomes so normal to do that, and that's my hope, is that we can get more people to experience that normal living in space, but also that normal of bringing together people from around the globe and just getting to know each other.
Yeah, understanding each other, appreciating where we come from as different countries. What strikes me about that is a memory that you chose is you went on EVAs. You went outside the spacecraft, outside and saw the entire planet underneath your feet, but you pick a very human moment as the memory, a bonding moment among your crew that stands out as the number one. I'm sure there's a ton of great memories, but it was the human one at the end of the day.
I mean, you can spend all day in the cupola staring at the Earth, and it's an amazing view. But when a crewmate floats up and watches it with you, it's just that much more spectacular.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Nick Hague, NASA astronaut, and a brigadier general with the Space Force. Thank you so much for being here. You did a fantastic job. And with that, our coverage comes to a close. But the journey for Crew 11, well, it is just beginning. After a stunning launch from Kennedy Space Center and a successful ride to orbit, the crew is now on their way to the International Space Station. This is a shortened trip, 15.3 hours, with docking targeted for a Saturday, August 2nd, at approximately 3 a.m. Eastern Time. And we'll pick back up, of course, with our coverage beginning at 2 a.m. Eastern Time on that same Saturday, tomorrow, for a targeted docking at that moment. And so with that, we want to just say thank you to everyone who was participating in this show today. If you want to follow along with the mission, Crew 11's journey to the space station, just by check in with our real-time mission audio. It will have the flight controllers communicating with the team. You can check that out. The QR code that's at the bottom of your screen now, you just pull out your phone and scan that. You can watch on your phone or watch on your TV with a streaming app. We'll pick back up live with broadcast coverage about 2 hours before docking right here on NASA Plus. Nick, thanks again. Really appreciate it, man. 2 launch attempts. I mean, you were fantastic. This is a long slog through the day, but it's wonderful to document seeing your friends go up to space.
Yeah, wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Absolutely. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for watching us get these astronauts to space. Continue to follow us as well, and make sure that you keep looking up. we are seeing the astronauts that are flying today. Once again, getting suited up. This is a tradition that happens before crew can leave the suit-up room. Crew 11 walking the hallway, ready to do it again. And here they come. Crew 11 walking outside before launch. Well, there's Xena giving a last wave with the window down. Crew 11 on the road to launch pad 39A. Well, there's our commander and our pilot looking up at their rocket. And here comes Mike and Xena, getting ready to get inside Dragon Endeavor. And here come our mission specialists right behind them, Oleg and Kimia. And there go the seats, articulating upwards, putting the crew in launch position. And the closeout crew closes the hatch to Dragon Endeavor.
3, 2, 1, ignition. Ignition's full power and liftoff. Go Falcon, go NASA, go Crew 11.
Together we rise as NASA's SpaceX Crew 11 heads up to the International Space Station.
Vehicle is pitching down range.
1.7 million pounds of thrust.
Propulsion is nominal.
Propelling Falcon 9 as the vehicle pitching down range and making its way up the East Coast, and will soon join Expedition 73 aboard the orbiting laboratory.